What if I told you that the biggest reason you cannot speak English fluently has nothing to do with grammar, vocabulary, or pronunciation? There is one hidden mistake that keeps millions of learners stuck.
Elevate
even
your
after
English with
years
the
of
English
study.
response
That is
system.
why some people know a lot
Published
of
by
English
everyday
but still
interactions
freeze
into
when someone
confident
asks them a
conversations.
simple question.
Master the art
difference
of
is not
response.
what they know. The difference is how they respond. Most learners train themselves to understand English. Very few train themselves to answer in English. In this audiobook, you will discover the hidden response system that fluent speakers use to answer naturally, confidently, and without translating. Before we begin, answer one question honestly. How many more years are you willing to understand English without truly speaking it? If your answer is not one more day, subscribe to the channel and write in the comments, "I will answer in English naturally." This book is published by English Mindset Academy. Now let's unlock the English response system. Chapter 1. Why your brain freezes when it is time to answer. The most painful moment for an English learner is not when they do not understand English, because not understanding is simple, honest, and easy to explain. The truly painful moment is when you do understand the question, you know the words, you recognize the grammar, you even have an idea in your mind, but the moment someone waits for your answer, your brain suddenly becomes empty, your confidence disappears, and the English you studied for years feels locked somewhere inside you. This is the moment that breaks the heart of many learners, because they begin to believe something is wrong with them. They begin to think they are slow, weak, shy, untalented, or not made for English, but the truth is very different. Your brain is not broken, your English is not useless, and your years of learning were not wasted. The real problem is that your brain has been trained to receive English, understand English, read English, and recognize English, but it has not been trained strongly enough to respond in English under pressure. There is a big difference between knowing English and answering in English, and this difference is the hidden gap that keeps millions of learners stuck for years. Knowing English means you can understand words when you hear them, you can recognize sentences when you read them, and you can explain grammar when someone asks you, but answering in English means your brain can take a real question, understand the meaning quickly, choose a simple response, arrange the words naturally, and send them out of your mouth before fear has time to stop you. Most learners spend years building knowledge, but they do not build response speed, and because of that, their English becomes like a beautiful car parked in a garage with no key. Everything is there, the engine exists, the wheels exist, the power exists, but when the real road appears, nothing moves, because the system that should start everything has not been trained. This is why you may understand English videos, follow conversations in movies, read English captions, learn hundreds of words, and still freeze when someone asks, "What do you think?" or "Can you tell me about yourself?" or "Why did you choose this?" Because real conversation does not give your brain unlimited time to search, translate, edit, correct, and polish every sentence. Real conversation demands a response, and if your brain has only practiced studying English slowly, it will panic when it is forced to produce English quickly. The freeze happens because your mind tries to do too many things at the same time. First, it listens to the question, then it tries to understand the meaning, then it searches for the answer in your native language, then it tries to translate that answer into English, then it checks grammar, then it worries about pronunciation, then it imagines the other person judging you, and by the time all of this is happening inside your head, the conversation has already moved ahead, and your confidence has already fallen. This is not a speaking problem only, it is a processing problem because your brain is overloaded. And when the brain is overloaded, it chooses silence as protection. Silence feels safer than making a mistake. Silence feels safer than being laughed at. Silence feels safer than saying something imperfect. So your mind shuts the door, not because you do not know English, but because the pressure is heavier than the system you have built. Think about how many learners can answer perfectly when they are alone, but struggle when another person is listening. When they are alone, there is no pressure, no judgment, no waiting face, no fear of mistakes, and no need to respond instantly. So the brain has time to search slowly and build sentences carefully. But in front of another person, the same learner feels different, because the mind is no longer just thinking about English, it is also thinking about embarrassment, speed, respect, mistakes, accent, grammar, and the opinion of the listener. This is why many learners say, "I can speak English in my mind, but I cannot speak it in real life," and this sentence reveals the truth of the problem. The English exists inside them, but it has not been trained to come out under real conversation conditions, and until English is practiced as a response, not only as information, the learner will continue to feel strong while studying and weak while speaking. A response system is different from memorization. Memorization gives you sentences, but a response system teaches your brain how to use those sentences at the right moment. Memorization says, I know this phrase, but response training says, I can use this phrase when someone asks me a real question. Memorization stores English in the mind, but response training connects English to action, timing, emotion, and real communication. This is why some learners memorize hundreds of expressions but still cannot speak naturally, because they collect English like books on a shelf, but they do not practice pulling the right book at the right time. Fluency is not only about how much English you have stored, it is about how quickly and naturally your brain can access the right English when the conversation needs it. The first reason your brain freezes is that it has been trained mostly for recognition, not production. Recognition means you can look at a word and know its meaning or hear a sentence and understand it, but production means you can create your own sentence without needing someone else to give it to you first. Many learners are strong in recognition because schools, apps, videos, and grammar lessons mostly train them to identify English, but real life requires production, and production requires a different kind of practice. When you watch English content for hundreds of hours, you may become better at understanding English, and that is good, but understanding alone does not automatically create speaking power. Listening fills your brain with English patterns, but speaking requires your brain to activate those patterns, choose them, shape them, and send them out through your mouth. If you only listen and never train response, your brain becomes like a person who watches swimming lessons for years but still panics when thrown into water. The second reason your brain freezes is that you are trying to translate full thoughts instead of responding with simple English ideas. In your native language, your thoughts may be deep, emotional, fast, and detailed, but when you try to carry that full thought into English word by word, your brain becomes stuck because the structure is different, the rhythm is different, and the emotional weight of the sentence becomes too heavy. Fluent speakers do not translate giant thoughts, they respond with simple, direct, flexible English. For example, when someone asks, "Why do you want to improve your English?" a learner may think of a long answer in their native language. I want to improve because English is very important for my career, my confidence, my future opportunities, and my personal growth, and I feel that if I can speak English better, my life will change. Then the learner tries to translate the whole thought perfectly, and the brain freezes. But a response-trained learner may simply say, I want better opportunities, and I want to speak with more confidence. That answer is simple, clear, natural, and successful. The third reason your brain freezes is perfection pressure. Many learners do not actually fear speaking English, they fear speaking imperfect English, and this fear destroys speed because the brain cannot be fast and perfect at the same time in the beginning. When you force your mind to check every grammar rule before speaking, your sentence becomes trapped inside a courtroom where every word is judged before it is allowed to leave. You must understand this deeply. Fluency is not born from perfect sentences. Fluency is born from repeated responses, and those responses become cleaner, smoother, and more natural over time. A child does not wait for perfect grammar before speaking, a native speaker does not plan every word before talking, and a fluent learner does not become fluent by avoiding mistakes, but by creating enough real responses that the brain begins to recognize what works. The fourth reason your brain freezes is emotional memory. Maybe you once made a mistake and someone laughed, maybe a teacher corrected you harshly, maybe your friends judged your accent, maybe you felt embarrassed in front of people, and your brain quietly learned that speaking English is dangerous. After that, every new speaking moment feels like a test, not a conversation, and when the brain feels tested, it becomes defensive, tense, and slow. This emotional memory is powerful because the mind remembers feelings more strongly than lessons. You may forget a grammar rule, but you remember the embarrassment of being corrected in front of others. You may forget a vocabulary list, but you remember the shame of not answering when someone expected you to speak. And because of these memories, your brain starts protecting you by making you silent, even when silence is the very thing that keeps you stuck. But here is the good news. If your brain learned to freeze, it can also learn to respond. Freezing is not your permanent identity, it is a trained reaction, and any trained reaction can be replaced by a stronger trained response. The same brain that now searches, translates, and panics can become a brain that listens, understands, and answers calmly, but it needs a new method, not more random study. You do not need to wait until you know every word before you speak. You need to learn how to use the words you already know with speed, confidence, and structure. Many learners already have enough English to begin speaking better, but they keep delaying because they think fluency will come after more lessons, more vocabulary, more grammar, and more time, while the truth is that fluency begins when you start training your response system with the English you already have. Imagine two learners. The first learner knows 5,000 words but never practices answering questions out loud. The second learner knows only 2,000 words but practices simple responses every day. After 6 months, the second learner will often sound more fluent, not because they know more English, but because their English is alive, active, and ready. The first learner has more knowledge, but the second learner has more response power. This is the secret many learners miss. Conversation rewards readiness more than knowledge. When someone asks you a question, they do not see the grammar books you studied. They do not see the vocabulary lists you memorized. They do not see the hours you spent watching lessons. They only hear whether you can respond. And if you can respond simply, clearly, and calmly, you are already communicating. That is why this book is not about stuffing more English into your mind. It is about unlocking the English already inside you and training it to come out at the right time. It is about changing your relationship with speaking from fear to action, from translation to response, from silence to movement, from waiting to answering. In this first chapter, the most important lesson is simple. Your brain freezes because it has not yet learned that English is something you do, not only something you know. When you treat English only as a subject, your mind becomes slow in conversation, but when you train English as a response, your mind begins to create pathways that make speaking faster and more natural. From today, stop asking only, "How many words do I know?" and start asking, "How quickly can I use the words I know?" Stop asking only, "Is my grammar perfect?" and start asking, "Can I answer clearly enough to continue the conversation?" Stop asking only, "Do I understand English?" and start asking, "Can I respond in English without running back to translation?" The goal is not to become perfect overnight. The goal is to build a mind that does not escape when English appears in real life. The goal is to teach your brain that a question in English is not a threat, it is an invitation. It is an invitation to respond, to practice, to grow, and to become the speaker you have been trying to become for years. Every time you answer, even with a simple sentence, you weaken the freezing habit. Every time you speak without waiting for perfection, you strengthen your response system. Every time you choose action over silence, you teach your brain that English is not something to fear, but something to use. So if you have been blaming yourself for freezing, stop today. You are not lazy, you are not weak, and you are not hopeless. You have simply been training the wrong part of fluency for too long, and now it is time to train the part that matters most in real conversation, the ability to answer instantly, naturally, and without translating every word in your head. This is where your transformation begins, not by learning more English first, but by activating the English you already have. Because the moment your brain learns how to respond, English stops feeling like a heavy subject and starts becoming a living skill. A skill that moves, speaks, connects, and grows every time you use it. And once you understand why your brain freezes, you are ready for the next step, removing the translation habit that secretly slows your speaking before your first word even comes out. Chapter 2, The Hidden Translation Habit Destroying Your Fluency. There is a silent habit inside the mind of almost every English learner, and this habit is so normal that most learners never even notice it, yet it is one of the biggest reasons they cannot answer quickly, speak naturally, or feel confident in real conversations. This habit is translation, and translation looks helpful in the beginning, but after a certain point it becomes the invisible chain that keeps your English slow, heavy, and trapped inside your head. When you first begin learning English, translation feels like a friend because it helps you understand new words, compare meanings, remember grammar, and connect English to something familiar. When you learn that water means the thing you drink, or beautiful means something nice to look at, translation gives your brain a bridge from your language to English, and in the beginning that bridge is useful because without it, everything feels strange and confusing. But the problem begins when the bridge becomes your home. Many learners use translation for so long that their brain never learns how to stand directly inside English. Instead of hearing English and feeling the meaning immediately, they hear English, send it back into their native language, create an answer in their native language, bring that answer back into English, check the grammar, check the word order, check pronunciation, and then try to speak. This entire process may happen in only a few seconds, but in real conversation, those few seconds feel like a lifetime. This is why you may understand English when you are alone, but freeze when someone is waiting for your answer. When you are alone, translation has time to work slowly, but when another person asks you a question, the conversation demands movement, and your translation habit cannot move fast enough. It is like trying to drive a car while stopping every few meters to rebuild the engine and then wondering why you cannot travel smoothly. The truth is that translation is not always wrong, but depending on translation while speaking is dangerous because conversation does not work like a written exam. When you write, you can pause, erase, edit, search, and correct. But when you speak, you need rhythm, flow, response, and emotional connection. The listener is not waiting for a perfect translation, the listener is waiting for a real answer, and the more you translate, the further you move away from natural communication. A fluent speaker does not hear the question, "What do you do in your free time?" and then translate it into another language before answering. A fluent speaker hears the question and directly connects it to meaning, memory, and response. The question enters the mind as an idea, not as a grammar puzzle, and the answer comes out as a simple expression of that idea, not as a sentence built word by word through mental pressure. This is the difference between English as information and English as reaction. English as information means you know what words mean, you know grammar rules, and you can explain sentences when there is no pressure. English as reaction means someone says something and your brain naturally knows what kind of answer belongs there. It knows how to agree, disagree, explain, ask back, give an example, add emotion, and continue the conversation without running through a translation machine inside your head. Translation destroys fluency because it forces your brain to work in the wrong direction. Instead of moving from meaning to English, your brain moves from English to your language, then from your language back to English, and this back and forth movement creates delay, confusion, and fear. While your brain is traveling between two languages, the conversation is moving forward, and this is why you feel behind even when you know the answer. Imagine someone asks you, "How was your day?" This is a very simple question, but if your response system depends on translation, your mind may start thinking, "How do I say my day was busy but good? Should I say my day was past good or my day went well? Is busy enough? Should I use past tense? What if I make a mistake?" And while all of this is happening, your mouth stays silent, your eyes lose confidence, and the other person feels that you are struggling. But a response-trained speaker does not go through that heavy process. They simply say, "It was busy, but it was good," or "Pretty good, just a little tiring," or "It was fine, nothing special," and the conversation continues. The answer is not complicated, but it works because it comes from response, not translation. This is the secret you must understand deeply. Fluent speaking is not about creating perfect sentences in your head before you speak. Fluent speaking is about using simple English fast enough to keep the conversation alive. Many learners fail because they believe their English must be impressive, advanced, and grammatically perfect before they speak, but real fluency often begins with simple, clear, natural sentences. A person who says, "I agree, but I see it a little differently," will sound more fluent than someone who stays silent while trying to build a perfect academic answer in their mind. Translation also makes your English sound unnatural because every language has its own rhythm, structure, emotion, and way of expressing ideas. When you translate directly from your language into English, you may create sentences that are technically understandable but not natural. The words may be English, but the thinking pattern behind them still belongs to your native language, and this is why your sentences may feel heavy, awkward, or too formal. For example, many learners try to translate emotional expressions word by word, and the sentence becomes strange because English does not always express ideas the same way. In your language, you may say something that literally means, "My heart became happy," but in English, a natural speaker may simply say, "That made me happy." In your language, you may say something that literally means, "I am taking tension," but in English, a natural speaker may say, "I'm stressed," or "I'm worried." The meaning is the same, but the expression is different. This is why translation can trap you inside unnatural English. You are not only translating words, you are translating thinking patterns, and when thinking patterns do not match, your speech becomes slow because your brain is trying to force one language into the shape of another. Natural English does not come from translating sentences. Natural English comes from learning patterns. A pattern is a ready-made structure your brain can use again and again without building everything from zero. When someone asks for your opinion, you do not need to invent a new sentence every time. You can use patterns like, I think, in my opinion, the way I see it, or honestly, I feel. When someone asks about your experience, you can use patterns like, I've noticed that, one thing I learned is, or for me the hardest part was. When someone asks you to explain, you can use patterns like, the main reason is, what I mean is, or let me explain it simply. These patterns are powerful because they reduce pressure. Instead of translating a full answer from your language, you begin with an English response frame, and once the frame is ready, your brain only needs to add the idea. This is how fluent speakers speak so quickly, not because they create every sentence from nothing, but because their mind has thousands of small patterns ready for different situations. Think of English conversation like building a house. Translation tries to cut every piece of wood during the conversation, measure every brick during the conversation, and design the house while people are watching. Response patterns are different because the foundation is already prepared, the walls are already shaped, and your brain only needs to place the right pieces where they belong. This is why I think is more powerful than it looks. It is not just a phrase, it is a door, and once your brain opens that door, the answer can begin. Many learners freeze because they wait for the full sentence to become perfect before speaking, but fluent speakers often begin with a small natural phrase and let the rest of the answer grow while they speak. For example, when someone asks, "Do you think English is difficult?" a translation-based learner may try to create the whole answer in their native language first, but a response-based learner can begin with, "I think it depends," and then continue. It is difficult in the beginning, but it becomes easier when you practice speaking every day. The first phrase creates motion, and motion is what destroys freezing. This is one of the most important lessons in this book. Do not wait until you have the whole answer ready before you start speaking. Start with a safe English pattern and let your brain build the answer step by step in English. Translation wants certainty before speaking, but fluency grows through movement while speaking. When you translate, you are asking your brain to protect you from mistakes. When you respond, you are teaching your brain to communicate even with imperfection. And this is why response training builds confidence faster than grammar study alone, because every successful response becomes evidence that you can survive real conversation. The translation habit also creates another hidden problem. It makes you dependent on your native language for confidence. If your brain cannot find the exact word in English, it panics because it thinks the answer is impossible. But fluent speakers do not need exact words all the time. They use simpler words, explain around the missing word, change the sentence, or choose a different way to express the idea. This skill is called flexibility, and flexibility is one of the true signs of fluency. A learner may think, I cannot say this because I do not know the exact word, but a fluent communicator thinks, I can explain it another way. If they do not know the word exhausted, they say very tired. If they do not know appointment, they say a meeting with the doctor. If they do not know confused, they say, I don't understand clearly. This ability to move around missing words is far more useful in real conversation than memorizing perfect vocabulary but staying silent when one word disappears. Translation makes you believe there is only one correct English version of your thought, but response training teaches you that there are many ways to communicate the same meaning. This removes pressure because you stop searching for the perfect sentence and start choosing a working sentence. A working sentence is a sentence that communicates your meaning clearly enough for the conversation to continue. This idea can change everything for you. You do not need a perfect sentence first. You need a working sentence first. Perfection can improve later, but conversation needs movement now. When you begin to value working sentences, you stop freezing because your brain no longer waits for the best answer. It chooses a clear answer, a simple answer, a useful answer, and then it continues. This is exactly how real speakers communicate in every language, because even native speakers do not speak like grammar books. They speak in flexible, natural, sometimes imperfect but understandable patterns. Another reason translation slows you down is that it separates listening from speaking. Instead of listening to the other person as a human being, you listen like a student taking a test. You focus on every word, every tense, every structure, every possible meaning, and because your brain is busy analyzing language, it forgets to connect with the message. Real conversation is not just language, it is attention, emotion, timing, and response. When someone says, "I had a really hard day," they are not giving you a grammar exercise. They are giving you an emotional signal, and a natural response may be as simple as, "I'm sorry to hear that, what happened?" But if your brain enters translation mode, you may spend too much time thinking about grammar and miss the emotional moment. By the time you answer, the response may feel late, stiff, or disconnected. This is why response training must include emotional patterns, not only grammar patterns. You need to train your mind to respond to situations, not just sentences. When someone shares good news, you need patterns for happiness. When someone shares a problem, you need patterns for support. When someone asks your opinion, you need patterns for thinking. When someone disagrees, you need patterns for staying calm. When someone asks a quick question, you need patterns for quick answers. English becomes natural when your response is connected to the situation. If the situation is surprise, your English should have surprise. If the situation is agreement, your English should have agreement. If the situation is explanation, your English should have structure. If the situation is emotion, your English should have warmth. Translation often removes this natural feeling because the learner is so busy building the sentence that the emotion disappears. The answer may be correct, but it sounds lifeless. The words are there, but the human connection is missing. And because conversation is human before it is grammatical, this makes speaking feel unnatural. To break the translation habit, you must start training your brain to connect English directly with meaning, not with your native language. When you hear the word hungry, do not translate it. Feel the idea of wanting food. When you hear tired, feel the body needing rest. When you hear I agree, feel alignment. When you hear I'm not sure, feel uncertainty. The more your brain connects English words to real meaning, images, emotions, and situations, the less it needs translation. This is how children learn their first language, and this is also how adult learners can make English faster. You may not become a child again, but you can train your brain to create direct English connections. Direct connections are faster because they remove the middle step, and every middle step you remove makes speaking lighter. One powerful way to train this is to practice answering simple questions without giving yourself time to translate. Choose questions like, what do you like? What did you do today? What is difficult for you? Why are you learning English? And answer quickly with simple sentences. The goal is not to impress anyone. The goal is to teach your brain that English answers can come directly from meaning. At first, your answers may be very simple, and that is not a problem. Simple answers are the beginning of speed. When your brain becomes comfortable answering simply, you can slowly add details. First say, I like English because it helps me. Later say, I like English because it helps me connect with people and find better opportunities. Later say, I like English because it gives me confidence, opens new opportunities, and helps me express myself in a bigger world. The answer grows, but the response begins simply. This is the correct order. Speed first, simplicity first, confidence first, then details. Many learners try to begin with long, beautiful answers, and that is why they freeze. They want to sound advanced before they sound automatic. They want to speak like a book before they can respond like a human. But fluency grows in layers, and the first layer is always quick, simple response. The second way to break translation is to stop asking, how do I say this in English all the time, and start asking, what is the simple English idea here? This question changes your thinking because it removes pressure from exact translation. Instead of trying to carry the full sentence from your language into English, you reduce the idea to a clean meaning and then express that meaning with the English you already know. For example, maybe in your language you have a complex thought like, the thing that stops me is not lack of knowledge, but the hesitation created by fear of judgment. Instead of translating that whole sentence, you can ask, what is the simple idea? The simple idea is, I know English, but I'm afraid of mistakes. That sentence is clear, powerful, and natural. This is how you become a speaker, not a translator. A translator protects every word. A speaker protects the meaning, and in conversation, meaning is more important than exact wording. The third way to break translation is to learn response blocks for common situations. A response block is a small set of sentences that your brain can use quickly in real conversations. For example, if someone asks your opinion, your response block can be, honestly, I think. The main reason is, for example, this gives your brain a path, and once the path exists, speaking becomes easier. If someone asks about your experience, your response block can be, in my experience. At first it was, but over time I learned. If someone asks you to explain a problem, your response block can be, the problem is, it happens because, the best solution is. If someone asks you a personal question, your response block can be, for me, I used to, but now. These blocks do not limit your English, they free your English because they remove the fear of starting. Starting is often the hardest part of speaking. Once you start, your brain usually finds the next words. This is why fluent speakers use opening phrases so naturally. They say things like, that's a good question, let me think for a second. Honestly, I would say, the main thing is, or it depends on the situation. These phrases are not empty, they are thinking bridges. They give the speaker a few seconds to organize the answer while still staying inside English. Learners who translate often stay silent while thinking, but fluent speakers think while speaking. This is a powerful difference. You do not need to be silent to think. You can think in English using small bridges. When you learn these bridges, your speech becomes smoother because the listener does not feel a blank pause. Even if you are thinking, you are still communicating. This reduces pressure and gives your brain time to organize without falling back into translation. The fourth way to break translation is to practice speaking from images and situations instead of written sentences. If you only practice by translating written lines, your brain becomes good at translation, not conversation. But if you look at a picture, remember a real moment, or imagine a situation and describe it in simple English, your brain learns to move from meaning to English directly. For example, look at a picture of a busy street and say, there are many people walking. Some people are waiting for the bus. The street looks noisy. Maybe it is evening. You are not translating a sentence from your language. You are taking meaning from the image and turning it into English. This is direct English thinking, and it is one of the fastest ways to weaken the translation habit. You can do the same with your daily life. Instead of thinking in your language and translating, describe small actions directly in English. I'm making tea. I need to finish this work. I feel tired today. This is difficult, but I can do it. I want to speak better. These simple thoughts train your brain to live inside English, and the more English becomes part of normal thinking, the less it feels like a performance. The fifth way to break translation is to accept shorter answers in the beginning. Many learners freeze because they think every answer must be long, impressive, and complete, but real conversation often begins with short answers and then grows. If someone asks, "Do you like learning English?" you do not need to give a speech immediately. You can say, yes, I do, but speaking is still difficult for me. And if the person is interested, you can continue. Conversation is not a single perfect answer. Conversation is a chain. Your first answer only needs to keep the chain alive. When you understand this, speaking becomes easier because you stop putting the weight of the entire conversation on one sentence. You realize you can answer simply, then add more, then ask a question back, then explain, then continue. Fluency is not one long perfect sentence, it is the ability to keep the chain moving. Translation breaks the chain because it creates silence where movement should be. Response training keeps the chain alive because it gives you something to say now even if it is simple. And in real life, a simple answer now is usually better than a perfect answer too late. One of the strongest habits you can build is the habit of answering first and improving second. This does not mean speaking carelessly forever, and it does not mean ignoring grammar, but it means that in conversation, communication comes before correction. You answer, you continue, you learn, and later you improve. If you try to correct everything before speaking, you may never speak at all. The fear of mistakes is one of the reasons translation feels safe. Translation gives you the illusion of control because you think if you translate carefully, you can avoid errors. But in real conversation, this control becomes a cage. You may avoid some mistakes, but you also avoid speed, emotion, connection, and confidence. You protect grammar but lose communication. Fluency requires a new belief. Mistakes are not proof that you are bad at English. Mistakes are proof that your English is moving. A silent learner makes no speaking mistakes, but also makes no speaking progress. A speaking learner makes mistakes, but every mistake gives the brain feedback, and feedback is what builds improvement. This is why translation must be reduced, not because translation is evil, but because it prevents the kind of active practice that creates real fluency. You can still use translation sometimes to understand difficult ideas, learn new vocabulary, or compare meanings, but when it is time to speak, you must train your brain to respond directly, even if the sentence is simple. The more you respond directly, the more your brain begins to trust English. At first, your mind may resist. It may say, wait, translate first, because that is the old habit. It may feel uncomfortable to answer quickly because your brain wants certainty. But if you keep practicing, the brain slowly learns a new rule. I do not need to translate everything before I speak. I can understand the idea and answer in simple English. This new rule is the beginning of your response system. Over time, your brain will begin to recognize common questions and attach them to common answer patterns. When someone asks, "What do you think?" your mind will not panic because it knows, "I think because." When someone asks, "Why do you want to learn English?" your mind will not freeze because it knows, "I want to because." When someone asks, "Can you explain?" your mind will not disappear because it knows, "Sure, what I mean is." These small patterns become mental shortcuts, and mental shortcuts are the reason fluent speakers sound fast. They are not magically smarter, they are not thinking about every grammar rule, and they are not translating every word. They are using trained pathways, and you can build those pathways too. The translation habit has been built through repetition, so it must be weakened through repetition. One day of practice will not remove it completely, but every direct response is a small victory. Every time you answer without translating the full sentence, you cut one thread of the old habit. Every time you use an English pattern instead of a native language sentence, you strengthen a new pathway. Every time you choose meaning over perfect wording, you become more like a speaker and less like a translator. You must be patient, but you must also be serious. If you keep studying English in the same way, you will keep getting the same result. More vocabulary will not automatically remove translation. More grammar will not automatically create response speed. More listening will not automatically make you answer confidently. You need a different kind of training, the kind that teaches your brain to connect questions with answers, meaning with English, and pressure with calm action. This is why the English response system matters. It is not just another study method, it is a different way of training your mind. Instead of asking your brain to store more information, it teaches your brain to use information quickly. Instead of depending on translation, it builds direct response. Instead of waiting for confidence, it creates confidence through repeated action. From today, when you hear an English question, do not try to create the perfect translation. First, understand the simple meaning, then choose a simple response pattern, then speak. Your answer may be short, but it will be alive. And once your English becomes alive, you can shape it, grow it, and make it more powerful. Remember this line: the goal is not to translate your native thoughts into English. The goal is to create English thoughts that are simple enough to speak and strong enough to communicate. That one idea can change the way you practice forever. Because the moment you stop translating every sentence, your brain starts discovering something powerful. English does not have to pass through another language before it becomes yours. English can begin inside English, grow inside English, and come out as your own natural voice. This is the freedom every learner is searching for. Not the freedom to know more rules, not the freedom to memorize more words, but the freedom to hear a question, feel the meaning, and answer without fear. And when you begin to break the translation habit, you are ready for the next stage of fluency, building instant response patterns, the small, powerful structures that teach your brain exactly how to answer in real conversations before silence has a chance to take over. Chapter 3. Building instant response patterns. If translation is the hidden habit that slows your English down, then response patterns are the hidden system that makes your English move faster. This is where real speaking begins to change, because the moment your brain stops trying to build every sentence from zero and starts using ready English structures, conversation becomes lighter, faster, and much less frightening. Most learners think fluent speakers are creating every sentence freshly in their minds, word by word, grammar rule by grammar rule, but that is not what actually happens. Fluent speakers use thousands of small patterns without noticing them, and because those patterns are already familiar, their brain does not need to work so hard when it is time to answer. When someone asks a fluent speaker a question, the speaker does not search the entire English language for a perfect sentence. The brain recognizes the type of question, chooses a familiar response path, and begins speaking from that path. This is why fluent speakers can answer quickly even when the topic is not easy, because they are not starting from emptiness, they are starting from a pattern. A response pattern is a sentence frame that helps your brain begin, continue, and complete an answer without panic. It is not memorizing a full script because real conversation is never exactly the same, but it is giving your mind a reliable starting point so you do not freeze when someone expects you to speak. For example, if someone asks, "What do you think about learning English?" You do not need to translate a full answer from your native language. You can begin with a pattern. "I think it is important because," and then add your idea. You can say, "I think it is important because it helps me communicate with more people and feel more confident." The pattern gives you the beginning, and your idea completes the answer. This may look simple, but it is powerful because speaking often fails at the starting point. Many learners do not freeze because they have no idea. They freeze because they do not know how to start the idea in English. Once the first few words come out, the rest becomes easier, but if the first words never come, the whole answer stays trapped inside the mind. That is why instant response patterns are not small tricks. They are the bridge between understanding and speaking. Your brain needs bridges. A bridge takes you from the question to the answer. A bridge takes you from silence to movement. A bridge takes you from thinking in your language to speaking in English. And the more bridges you build, the less you depend on translation. Imagine your English mind as a city. If there are no roads, every journey becomes slow and confusing, but if roads are already built, you can travel quickly from one place to another. Response patterns are the roads inside your English brain, and every time you repeat them, the road becomes smoother, stronger, and easier to use. This is why one learner can know many words but still freeze, while another learner with fewer words can speak more smoothly. The second learner may not know more English, but their English has roads, their brain has paths, and their mouth knows where to begin. The first pattern every learner needs is the opinion pattern because real conversations are full of opinions. People ask what you think, what you like, what you prefer, what you believe, what you feel, and if your brain does not have opinion patterns, even simple questions can feel difficult. The most basic opinion pattern is, "I think because." This pattern is simple, but it can carry thousands of answers. If someone asks, "Do you think English is difficult?" you can say, "I think English is difficult in the beginning because your brain is not used to the rhythm." If someone asks, "Do you think speaking is more important than grammar?" you can say, "I think speaking is more important for daily life because people need communication more than perfect rules." If someone asks, "Do you think confidence matters?" you can say, "I think confidence matters a lot because fear can stop even a good learner from speaking." Notice what happens when you use this pattern. Your brain no longer has to design the whole sentence because the structure is already there, and your only job is to place your idea inside it. This reduces pressure, creates speed, and gives your speech a natural shape. Another strong opinion pattern is, "In my opinion, the main thing is." This is useful when you want to sound more thoughtful and organized. You can say, "In my opinion, the main thing is daily practice," because English becomes easier when your brain meets it every day. You can say, "In my opinion, the main thing is not perfection, but consistency," because a learner who speaks every day improves faster than a learner who waits for confidence. This pattern helps you sound mature because it guides your answer toward one clear point. A third opinion pattern is, "The way I see it." This phrase sounds natural and conversational. You can say, "The way I see it, English is not only a subject, it is a habit." You can say, "The way I see it, most learners do not fail because they are weak. They fail because they practice the wrong skill." This phrase is powerful because it makes your answer feel personal, not memorized. The second pattern every learner needs is the explanation pattern because conversations often require you to explain why something happens, why you like something, why you made a decision, or why you believe an idea. If you cannot explain in English, your answers stay too short, and you may feel that your speaking is weak even when you understand the topic. The most useful explanation pattern is, "The reason is." This pattern is direct and easy. If someone asks, "Why are you learning English?" you can say, "The reason is I want better opportunities and more confidence." If someone asks, "Why is speaking difficult for you?" you can say, "The reason is I understand English, but I still translate before answering." If someone asks, "Why do learners give up?" you can say, "The reason is they expect fluency quickly, but they do not build speaking habits." Another explanation pattern is, "It happens because." This helps you explain causes. You can say, "It happens because the brain is under pressure." You can say, "It happens because learners study English like a subject instead of practicing it like a skill." You can say, "It happens because translation makes the mind slow." This pattern is perfect for turning a simple answer into a stronger answer. A more advanced explanation pattern is, "What I mean is." This pattern is important because sometimes your first sentence may not be clear, and instead of stopping or feeling embarrassed, you can explain again in simpler English. If you say something and feel it was not perfect, you can continue with, "What I mean is, I need more practice speaking, not only watching lessons." This phrase saves the conversation because it gives you a second chance without panic. Many learners become silent when they feel their first sentence was not good, but fluent speakers know how to repair their speech. They say, "What I mean is," or "Let me say it another way," or "I mean," and then they continue. This ability is extremely important because real fluency is not about never making mistakes, it is about recovering smoothly when your sentence is not perfect. The third pattern every learner needs is the personal experience pattern because people love hearing about real experiences. If you only give general answers, your English may sound dry, but when you connect your answer to your own life, your speaking becomes more natural, more emotional, and more memorable. The basic personal experience pattern is, "For me." This phrase is small, but it opens the door to personal speaking. You can say, "For me, the hardest part is answering quickly." You can say, "For me, listening is easier than speaking." You can say, "For me, English becomes easier when I practice out loud." This pattern helps you speak honestly without needing advanced vocabulary. Another strong pattern is, "I used to, but now." This is one of the most powerful patterns for learners because it shows transformation, and transformation is interesting in conversation. You can say, "I used to translate every sentence, but now I try to answer with simple English." You can say, "I used to feel afraid of mistakes, but now I understand that mistakes are part of speaking." You can say, "I used to study only grammar, but now I practice response patterns every day." This pattern is powerful because it gives your answer a story shape. It shows the past and the present, weakness and growth, old habit and new habit. People connect with this kind of speaking because it feels real. Another personal experience pattern is, "One thing I learned is." You can say, "One thing I learned is that confidence comes after action, not before action." You can say, "One thing I learned is that simple English is better than silent English." You can say, "One thing I learned is that fluency grows when I stop translating every word." This pattern makes your English sound reflective and intelligent even with simple words. The fourth pattern every learner needs is the agreement and disagreement pattern, because conversation is not only answering questions, sometimes you need to agree, disagree, add your opinion, or show a different view. Many learners avoid disagreement because they do not know how to do it politely in English, so they either stay silent or say something too direct. A simple agreement pattern is, "I agree because." You can say, "I agree because speaking practice is necessary." You can say, "I agree because confidence grows when we practice daily." This is easy and clear. A stronger agreement pattern is, "That makes sense, especially because." This sounds more natural and thoughtful. You can say, "That makes sense, especially because." Many learners know English but cannot use it in real conversations. You can say, "That makes sense, especially because." The brain needs repetition to make speaking automatic. This pattern helps you sound connected to the other person's idea. For polite disagreement, use, "I understand your point, but." This pattern is very important because it allows you to disagree without sounding rude. You can say, "I understand your point, but I think speaking practice is more important than memorizing rules." You can say, "I understand your point, but I believe learners need confidence training too." This phrase protects the relationship while allowing you to express your own thought. Another disagreement pattern is, "I see it a little differently." You can say, "I see it a little differently." because grammar helps, but it does not automatically create fluency. You can say, I see it a little differently, because some learners know many words but still cannot respond. This phrase is soft, natural, and useful in real conversations. The fifth pattern every learner needs is the example pattern, because examples make your English easier to understand. When you give examples, your speaking becomes clearer, longer, and more useful. Without examples, your answers may finish too quickly and feel incomplete. The basic example pattern is, for example. This phrase may be common, but it is one of the most important speaking tools in English. If you say translation slows learners down, you can add, for example, when someone asks a simple question, the learner first thinks in their native language and then tries to convert the sentence into English. Now your answer is stronger. Another example pattern is, a simple example is. This phrase is excellent for teaching, explaining, or making your point clear. You can say, a simple example is the question, how was your day? Many learners know the answer, but they freeze because they try to make the sentence perfect. This pattern helps your English sound organized and helpful. A more natural example pattern is, like when. You can say, it happens like when you understand a movie scene but cannot explain it in English. You can say, it is like when you know what you feel but cannot find the words fast enough. This pattern is conversational and easy to use. Examples are powerful because they reduce the need for advanced words. Instead of explaining an idea with difficult vocabulary, you can show the idea through a situation, and the listener understands naturally. This is why a learner who knows how to give examples can sound more fluent than a learner who only knows definitions. The sixth pattern every learner needs is the comparison pattern, because comparisons make your ideas more powerful. When you compare two things, your brain creates structure, and structure makes speaking easier. The basic comparison pattern is, it is not, it is. This pattern is very strong for clear communication. You can say, fluency is not about knowing every word. It is about using the words you know quickly. You can say, speaking is not a test, it is a skill. You can say, confidence is not something you wait for, it is something you build by speaking. This pattern sounds powerful because it corrects a false belief and replaces it with a stronger truth. Another comparison pattern is, the difference between and is. You can say, the difference between understanding English and speaking English is response speed. You can say, the difference between a learner and a speaker is not only knowledge, but practice under pressure. This pattern helps you sound clear and analytical. A third comparison pattern is, instead of, try. This is useful when giving advice. You can say, instead of translating full sentences, try using simple English patterns. You can say, instead of waiting for perfect grammar, try answering with a working sentence. This pattern is practical and valuable for learners. The seventh pattern every learner needs is the continuation pattern, because many learners can say one sentence but cannot continue. They answer the question, then stop, and the conversation dies. Continuation patterns help your brain add more without feeling lost. A basic continuation pattern is, and another thing is. You can say, and another thing is. Learners need to practice with real questions. This allows you to add a second point. Another useful pattern is, also, I feel that. You can say, also, I feel that confidence becomes stronger when we speak every day. This sounds natural and personal. A stronger continuation pattern is, that is why. You can say, that is why response training is so important. You can say, that is why learners should practice answering, not only understanding. This pattern connects your idea to a conclusion. Another powerful continuation pattern is, at the same time. This helps you add balance. You can say, at the same time, grammar is still useful, but it should support speaking, not stop it. This phrase makes you sound thoughtful because you are not speaking in a simple one-sided way. The eighth pattern every learner needs is the clarification pattern, because sometimes you will not understand the question clearly, and this is normal. Many learners panic when they miss one word, but fluent communication does not require understanding everything perfectly. It requires knowing how to ask for clarification calmly. The simplest clarification pattern is, could you repeat that please? This is not a failure, it is a normal part of conversation. Another pattern is, do you mean? You can say, do you mean my opinion or my experience? You can say, do you mean speaking in daily life or speaking at work? This pattern helps you control the conversation instead of feeling controlled by it. A more natural pattern is, I'm not sure I understood correctly, but you can say, I'm not sure I understood correctly, but "I think you are asking about my English practice." This phrase allows you to answer while showing honesty. Many learners think asking for repetition makes them look weak, but in reality, it makes them look engaged. Native speakers ask for clarification too because communication is not always perfect. The problem is not asking again. The problem is pretending to understand and then becoming silent. The ninth pattern every learner needs is the question back pattern, because conversation should not be only one person asking and one person answering. If you want to sound natural, you must learn how to return questions, because returning questions keeps the conversation alive and gives you more time to think. A simple question back pattern is, "What about you?" If someone asks, "Do you like learning English?" you can answer and then say, "What about you?" This keeps the conversation moving. Another pattern is, "How about you?" This is useful in friendly conversation. You can say, "I usually practice in the evening. How about you?" A stronger pattern is, "What do you think about that?" This works when you share an opinion and want the other person to respond. You can say, "I think speaking practice is more important than memorizing rules. What do you think about that?" Question back patterns are powerful because they remove the pressure from you. You do not need to carry the whole conversation alone. You answer, then invite the other person to speak, and while they speak, your brain gets time to relax, listen, and prepare the next response. The 10th pattern every learner needs is the closing pattern, because sometimes your answer needs a clean ending. Without an ending pattern, learners may continue too long or stop suddenly. A closing pattern helps your speech feel complete. A basic closing pattern is, "So that is why." You can say, "So that is why I believe response practice is important." This gives your answer a strong finish. Another closing pattern is, "That is the main point." You can say, "That is the main point." English must become a response, not only knowledge. A more natural closing pattern is, "That is how I see it." You can use this after giving your opinion. It sounds calm and confident. Closing patterns matter because they teach your brain how to finish an answer without fear. Many learners do not know whether they have said enough, so they either stop too early or keep adding random sentences. Closing patterns give your answer shape and control. Now, when you look at all these patterns together, you begin to understand something important. Speaking English is not one giant skill. Speaking English is a collection of small response moves, and each move can be trained. You need a move for starting. You need a move for explaining. You need a move for giving opinions. You need a move for giving examples. You need a move for disagreeing politely. You need a move for asking back. You need a move for finishing. When these moves become familiar, your English begins to feel more automatic. This is why response patterns are so powerful. They break the heavy idea of fluency into smaller actions your brain can actually practice. Instead of saying, "I need to become fluent," you can say, "Today I will practice opinion patterns." Instead of saying, "I cannot speak," you can say, "Today I will practice explaining with 'the reason is.'" Instead of saying, "My English is weak," you can say, "Today I will practice answering and asking back." This changes your identity because you stop seeing yourself as a person waiting for fluency, and you start seeing yourself as a person building fluency through repeated responses. But patterns only work if you train them actively. Reading a pattern is not enough. Understanding a pattern is not enough. Saving a pattern in your notebook is not enough. You must speak the pattern out loud until your mouth becomes familiar with it. This is where many learners fail. They collect phrases, but they do not activate them. They write beautiful notes, but their tongue never practices the movement. They watch lessons about speaking, but they do not speak, and then they wonder why English still feels stuck. Your mouth needs practice too. Your tongue needs practice. Your voice needs practice. Your breathing needs practice. Your confidence needs practice. English is not only inside your brain, it must travel through your body, and the body only becomes comfortable through repetition. This is why you should practice patterns out loud, not silently in your head. When you practice silently, you may feel fluent because the sentence sounds perfect in your mind. But when you speak out loud, you discover where your mouth is slow, where your pronunciation feels heavy, where your breathing stops, and where your confidence shakes. This is not bad, this is training. A response pattern becomes powerful when it moves from your eyes to your brain, from your brain to your mouth, and from your mouth into real conversation. There are 3 levels of pattern training. The first level is controlled practice. Controlled practice means you take one pattern and repeat it with many answers. For example, take the pattern "I think because" and answer 10 different questions with it. I think English is important because it opens opportunities. I think speaking is difficult because learners fear mistakes. I think daily practice helps because the brain needs repetition. I think confidence grows because action creates evidence. This level builds familiarity. The second level is flexible practice. Flexible practice means you use the same pattern but change the topic naturally. You may talk about your work, family, studies, goals, habits, problems, dreams, and experiences. This teaches your brain that the pattern is not tied to one topic, it can travel anywhere. When a pattern can travel, it becomes part of your real speaking system. The third level is pressure practice. Pressure practice means you answer with a time limit, maybe 5 seconds to begin and 30 seconds to continue. This is important because real conversation has pressure. If you only practice slowly, your brain becomes good at slow English. But if you practice beginning quickly, your brain learns to respond before fear takes control. Pressure practice does not mean forcing yourself to speak perfectly. It means teaching your mind to start with simple English even when you do not feel fully ready. You hear a question, you begin with a pattern, and you continue as clearly as you can. This is how you build speaking courage. One of the best exercises for building instant response patterns is called the 3-sentence answer. In this exercise, you answer every question with 3 sentences. First, a direct answer. Second, a reason. Third, an example or detail. If someone asks, "Why are you learning English?" you answer, "I am learning English because I want to speak confidently." The main reason is that English can help me in my work and personal growth. For example, if I speak better, I can communicate with more people and feel more independent. This exercise is powerful because it prevents one-word answers and also prevents overthinking. It gives your brain a clear shape: answer, reason, example. You do not need to wonder what to say next because the structure tells you what to say next. Another powerful exercise is the answer and return method. In this exercise, you answer the question and then ask a related question back. If someone asks, "Do you enjoy learning English?" you say, "Yes, I enjoy it, but speaking is still challenging for me. I try to practice every day because I want to become more natural. What about you? Do you enjoy learning languages?" This method turns practice into real conversation because you are not only responding, you are creating flow. Many learners speak like they are being interviewed. They wait for the next question and feel pressure after every answer. But natural conversation is not an interview, it is an exchange. Response patterns help you answer, and question back patterns help you keep the exchange alive. Another exercise is the 1-pattern day. Choose one pattern for an entire day and use it as many times as possible. For example, choose "the main reason is" and use it when you explain anything. The main reason I woke up early is. The main reason I like this food is. The main reason I want better English is. At first, it may feel repetitive, but repetition is exactly what your brain needs. You are not trying to entertain yourself, you are training a pathway. A pathway is built through use, not through wishing, not through watching, not through reading only, through use. Another exercise is the mistake recovery practice. Take a sentence, say it imperfectly on purpose, and then repair it with "what I mean is." For example, say, "I am difficult to speaking English," then correct yourself naturally. "What I mean is, speaking English is difficult for me." This exercise may feel strange, but it teaches your brain that mistakes are not emergencies, they are repairable moments. This is extremely important because many learners freeze after one mistake. They think the conversation is ruined, but fluent speakers repair themselves all the time. They say, "Sorry, I mean," or "Let me say that again," or "What I mean is," and they continue. If you train recovery patterns, mistakes lose their power over you. Another important exercise is the emotional response practice. Take common situations and practice natural emotional responses. If someone says, "I passed my exam," you say, "That's amazing, congratulations, you must be really happy." If someone says, "I'm very tired today," you say, "I understand, you should rest a little if you can." If someone says, "I'm nervous about speaking English," you say, "That's normal. Many learners feel that way in the beginning." These emotional patterns make your English human, not robotic. Learners often focus only on information, but conversation is full of emotion. If you only know how to give facts, your English may sound stiff. If you learn emotional patterns, your English becomes warmer and more natural. Another exercise is the situation response drill. Choose a situation, not a grammar topic. For example, meeting a new person, asking for help, explaining a problem, talking about your day, giving your opinion, apologizing, disagreeing politely, or describing your goals. Then practice the patterns that belong to that situation. This is better than random study because real life gives you situations, not grammar chapter headings. When you meet a new person, you need introduction patterns. When you explain a problem, you need problem patterns. When you share your opinion, you need opinion patterns. When you need help, you need request patterns. When you disagree, you need polite disagreement patterns. When you feel nervous, you need simple survival patterns. This is how English becomes useful. Situation by situation, response by response. A strong English response system is not built from complicated vocabulary, it is built from familiar patterns used in many situations. This is why you should never look down on simple structures, because simple structures become powerful when your brain can use them instantly. The sentence "I think" may look basic, but if you can use it instantly in 20 different situations, it becomes more valuable than an advanced word you cannot use in conversation. The phrase "the reason is" may look simple, but if it helps you explain your thoughts without freezing, it becomes a fluency tool. The phrase "what I mean is" may look small, but if it saves you when your sentence goes wrong, it becomes a confidence tool. The phrase "how about you" may look easy, but if it keeps the conversation alive, it becomes a connection tool. Never underestimate small English that works. Small English that works is better than big English that stays silent. This is one of the strongest truths you can learn as an English learner. Many learners want advanced English because they think advanced words create respect, but in real conversation, clarity creates respect, confidence creates respect, and natural response creates respect. If your English is simple but alive, people can connect with you. If your English is advanced but trapped in your head, nobody can hear it. The goal of response patterns is not to make you sound like a robot. The goal is to give your brain a starting structure until English becomes natural. At first, you may feel that you are using repeated phrases, but over time, your brain begins to mix them, change them, and make them your own. This is how all language learning works. Even native speakers repeat patterns constantly. They say, "You know what I mean. The thing is, to be honest, I guess, it depends. That makes sense. I see your point. Let me explain," and many other repeated phrases every day. They do not feel robotic because the patterns are connected to real meaning, emotion, and situation. You must give yourself permission to use patterns until they become natural. At the beginning, you borrow the pattern. Then you practice the pattern. Then you personalize the pattern. Then the pattern becomes part of your voice. This is how English becomes yours, not by memorizing thousands of disconnected sentences, but by training flexible patterns until they can carry your real thoughts. There is another reason patterns are powerful. They reduce fear before speaking. When your brain knows how to begin, the question no longer feels like a wall. It feels like a door. And once you have a door, you can enter the conversation. Fear grows in emptiness. Confidence grows in structure. If your mind has no structure, every question feels dangerous because you do not know where to start. But if your mind has patterns, you feel safer because you know you have something ready. Even if the answer is not perfect, you are not empty. This is why response patterns are especially useful for shy learners, nervous learners, and learners who feel pressure in front of others. Patterns give them a safe first step, and sometimes a safe first step is all the brain needs to continue. Imagine someone asks, "Tell me about your English journey." Without a pattern, your mind may freeze because the question feels too big. But with patterns, you can answer calmly, "I started learning English because I wanted better opportunities. At first, I focused mostly on grammar and vocabulary, but later I realized that speaking needs a different kind of practice. Now I am trying to build my response system so I can answer more naturally." This answer is not complicated, but it is clear, personal, and fluent. Notice the structure inside that answer: reason, past experience, realization, present goal. This is how response patterns turn a big question into manageable pieces. A learner who has no pattern sees one big mountain. A learner with patterns sees small steps, and small steps are easier to climb. Another example, someone asks, "Why do you think learners struggle with speaking?" With patterns, you can say, I think learners struggle because they train understanding more than response. The main problem is that they know English, but they do not practice answering under pressure. For example, they can understand videos, but when someone asks a real question, they start translating and freeze. This answer uses opinion, reason, and example patterns, and it sounds strong because it has structure. This is the beauty of patterns. They make your thinking visible. Without patterns, your ideas may remain messy inside your mind. With patterns, your ideas come out in order. And when your ideas come out in order, people understand you more easily. The more you practice response patterns, the more your brain begins to predict conversation. It starts to understand that certain questions need certain answer shapes. A why question needs a reason, a how question needs a process, a what do you think question needs an opinion, a tell me about question needs a story, a can you explain question needs clarity, and a do you agree question needs agreement or disagreement. This prediction skill is one of the secrets of fluency. Fluent speakers are not surprised by every question because their brain recognizes question types. Once the type is recognized, the response path becomes easier. You can train this by sorting questions into categories. Opinion questions, what do you think? Do you agree? Is it important? Reason questions, why did you choose this? Why is it difficult? Why do you like it? Experience questions, have you ever? Tell me about a time. What happened? Preference questions. Which one do you prefer? What do you like better? Would you rather? Explanation questions. How does it work? Can you explain? What do you mean? Emotional questions. How do you feel? Are you nervous? What makes you happy? When you know the category, you can choose the pattern faster. This is how the English response system becomes practical. It does not ask you to memorize random English. It teaches you to recognize conversation situations and attach useful response patterns to them. Over time, this creates automaticity. Automaticity means your brain can do something with less conscious effort. When you first learn to ride a bike, every movement feels difficult. You think about balance, pedals, handles, speed, and direction, but after enough practice, the body learns the pattern and the movement becomes automatic. Speaking English works in a similar way. At first, you think about every word, but after enough pattern practice, your brain begins to respond with less struggle. This does not mean you will never think. It means thinking becomes smoother. You will still choose ideas. You will still express yourself. You will still learn new words. But you will no longer feel that every sentence is a heavy construction project. Your speech will begin to flow because the basic structures are already trained. This is the stage where learners start noticing a beautiful change. They hear a question and suddenly a phrase appears in their mind. They do not force it. They do not translate it. They do not search for it painfully. It appears because they have practiced it many times. This moment is exciting because it proves that English can become automatic. Maybe the phrase is I think, maybe it is the main reason is, maybe it is for me, maybe it is what I mean is. The phrase may be simple, but the feeling is powerful because for the first time, the learner experiences English as a response instead of a struggle. That feeling is the beginning of freedom. But you must protect this progress by practicing correctly. Do not practice patterns only by reading them. Do not practice them only once. Do not practice them only when you feel motivated. Practice them until they become boring. Boring repetition creates automatic fluency. This may sound strange, but it is true. Your brain does not automate something because it is exciting once. It automates something because it sees it again and again and again. Repetition tells the brain, this is important, keep it ready. And when the brain keeps it ready, response becomes faster. This is why serious learners must stop chasing only new lessons. New lessons feel exciting, but repeated practice creates results. If you watch 10 new videos but never repeat response patterns, your speaking may not change. But if you practice 10 powerful patterns every day, your speaking will begin to transform. The goal is not to know more patterns than everyone else. The goal is to own the patterns you need most. Owning a pattern means you can use it without hesitation. Owning a pattern means it comes out when you need it. Owning a pattern means it belongs to your voice. A learner who owns 50 patterns can speak better than a learner who has seen 500 patterns but cannot use them. So start small but go deep. Choose the patterns that match your real life. If you need English for work, practice professional response patterns. If you need English for travel, practice travel response patterns. If you need English for study, practice classroom response patterns. If you need English for friendship, practice casual conversation patterns. If you need English for interviews, practice self-introduction, experience, strength, weakness, and goal patterns. Your English should not be random. It should serve the life you actually want to live. This is another mistake many learners make. They study English that is not connected to their real situations, so even after learning, they still feel unprepared. If your daily problem is answering questions at work, then practice work answers. If your daily problem is speaking with strangers, then practice introduction and small talk patterns. If your daily problem is explaining your thoughts, then practice reason, example, and clarification patterns. Fluency becomes faster when practice matches real need. The English response system is not about becoming a dictionary. It is about becoming ready. Ready for common questions, ready for simple answers, ready for mistakes, ready for follow-up questions, ready for real situations, ready to speak before fear takes control. One powerful way to build readiness is to create your personal response library. This is not a long notebook full of random phrases, but a small collection of patterns and sample answers that you practice repeatedly. For example, you can create sections like introducing myself, talking about my day, explaining my goals, giving my opinion, asking for help, describing problems, agreeing and disagreeing, and ending conversations. In each section, write 3 or 4 patterns and practice them out loud. Do not write too much, because too much becomes overwhelming. Write enough to practice, and practice enough to activate. For introducing yourself, your library may include, my name is, I'm from, I'm currently learning English because one of my goals is. For talking about your day, it may include, today was, the best part was, the difficult part was, now I feel. For opinions, it may include, I think, in my opinion, the way I see it. For explanations, it may include, the reason is, it happens because, what I mean is. This library becomes your training ground. You do not need to wait for real conversations to practice. You can rehearse the movements before the real moment arrives, just like an athlete practices before the match. And when the match comes, the body knows what to do because the movement has already been repeated. Many learners only practice when the real conversation happens, but that is like trying to learn driving during a race. Of course you will panic. Practice must happen before pressure, so when pressure arrives, your brain has something to trust. Another important point is that patterns must be spoken with emotion, not only memorized like dead sentences. When you practice I think because, do not say it like a robot, say it as if you are actually sharing your view. When you practice I understand your point, but say it with respect. When you practice that's amazing, say it with real happiness. Emotion helps your brain connect patterns to situations, and this makes them easier to use in real conversation. English is not only correct words. English is voice, feeling, timing, and intention. When you add emotion to patterns, your English becomes alive. You should also practice changing the same pattern in different ways. For example, I think can become I feel, I believe, I would say, in my opinion, from my point of view. These variations help you avoid sounding repetitive and give your brain more choices. But remember, do not collect variations too quickly. First master the simple version, then add alternatives. If you try to learn too many versions at once, you may confuse yourself and return to freezing. Fluency grows from strong basics, not from scattered complexity. The same is true for explanation patterns. First master the reason is, then add one reason is, the main reason is, it is mainly because, and what makes it difficult is. Each variation gives your English more flexibility, but only after the main pattern becomes comfortable. This is how you grow safely. Simple, repeated, flexible, natural. There is another powerful pattern skill called chaining. Chaining means connecting several patterns together to create a longer answer without losing control. For example, use opinion, reason, example, and closing together. I think speaking practice is the fastest way to improve. The main reason is that speaking trains your brain to respond under pressure. For example, when you answer daily questions out loud, your mind becomes faster. That is why I believe learners should practice speaking every day. This answer sounds fluent because it has a chain. Opinion, I think, reason. The main reason is, example, for example, closing. That is why, when you learn chaining, you can create longer answers for your audiobook practice, interviews, discussions, and real conversations. You no longer feel lost after one sentence because you know the next link in the chain. Another chain is personal story. I used to, at first, but then, now. For example, I used to translate every sentence before speaking. At first, I thought this was the only way to speak correctly, but then I realized translation was making me slow. Now I practice simple response patterns so my English can come out faster. This chain is powerful because it creates a mini story, and stories are easier for listeners to follow. Another chain is problem solution. The problem is, it happens because, the solution is. For example, you can say, the problem is that many learners understand English but cannot respond. It happens because they practice recognition more than production. The solution is to train instant response patterns every day. For example, they can answer simple questions out loud using I think, because. This chain is perfect for explaining learning problems, and it can make your English sound organized and helpful. Another chain is comparison. Many people think, but actually, that is why. You can say, many people think fluency comes from learning more grammar. But actually, fluency comes from using English automatically in real situations. That is why response practice is so important. This chain is powerful because it corrects a misunderstanding and gives a clear lesson. When you practice chains, do not rush. Start with 2 patterns, then 3, then 4. The purpose is not to create long speeches immediately, but to teach your brain how ideas connect in English. Connection is the heart of fluent speaking. Words alone are not enough. Sentences alone are not enough. You need connection. You need one idea to lead naturally into the next idea. Patterns create that connection. This is why Chapter 3 matters so much. Chapter 1 showed you why your brain freezes. Chapter 2 showed you how translation slows you down. And now Chapter 3 gives you the practical building blocks that can replace freezing in translation with movement and response. But you must understand something important. Response patterns are not magic unless you use them daily. If you only listen to this chapter and feel motivated, nothing will change. Motivation may make you excited for one day, but practice will change your speaking for life. So here is the daily system. Choose 5 questions every day. Choose 1 response pattern. Answer each question out loud using that pattern. Then answer again with a little more detail. Then answer one more time with emotion and confidence. This is simple, but if you do it daily, your brain will change. For example, choose the pattern I think because and answer, I think English is important because. I think speaking is difficult because. I think confidence grows because. I think learners should practice daily because. I think translation slows fluency because. Say each answer out loud, not once but several times, until the pattern feels easier. Then the next day choose the reason is. The next day choose for me. The next day choose I used to, but now. The next day choose what I mean is. Within a few weeks, your brain will have a small but powerful set of response paths. This is how automatic speaking begins, not from one big miracle, from small repeated patterns. You may think this is too simple, but simple practice done deeply is what most learners never do. They keep searching for advanced secrets while ignoring the basic movements that create fluency. They want the final result without training the response muscles. But English speaking is a skill, and every skill needs repeated movement. A pianist does not become smooth by reading about music only. They repeat movements until their fingers know where to go. A driver does not become confident by memorizing traffic rules only. They practice until their body knows how to control the car. A speaker does not become fluent by studying English only. They respond again and again until the brain knows how to answer. This is the mindset you need. Every response pattern is a movement. Every spoken answer is a repetition. Every repetition is a signal to the brain. Every signal builds a pathway. Every pathway creates speed. Every speed creates confidence. Every confidence creates more speaking. And more speaking creates fluency. This is the chain. When you practice response patterns, do not judge your first attempts harshly. Your first answers may sound basic, slow, or awkward, but that does not mean the method is failing. It means your brain is waking up a skill that was sleeping. When a muscle is weak, the first exercise feels hard, but the difficulty is proof that training is happening. Your job is not to sound perfect today. Your job is to make responding normal. If responding becomes normal, fluency becomes possible. If responding remains rare, fluency remains a dream. This is why you must celebrate every answer, even a simple one. When you answer in English instead of staying silent, you are teaching your brain a new identity. You are saying, I am not only an English learner, I am an English responder. This identity matters because your brain behaves according to the identity you repeat. If you keep saying, I cannot speak, your brain looks for evidence to protect that belief. If you start saying, I am training my response system, your brain looks for actions to support that belief. Identity changes practice, and practice changes ability. From now on, do not measure your English only by how many new words you learned. Measure it by how many questions you answered. Do not measure your progress only by how many videos you watched. Measure it by how many response patterns you activated. Do not measure fluency by how perfect you sounded. Measure it by how quickly you began, how clearly you continued, and how calmly you recovered when you made a mistake. This is a better way to measure speaking progress because it focuses on the skill that real conversation actually needs. A learner who answers 10 questions a day out loud is training fluency more directly than a learner who watches 10 lessons silently. A learner who practices I think because with real ideas is building response power. A learner who repairs mistakes with what I mean is building confidence. A learner who asks back with what about you is building conversation flow. A learner who closes answers with that is how I see it is building control. These small actions become a system, and a system repeated long enough becomes a new mind. The English response system is not about forcing English. It is about preparing your brain so English can come out more easily. When your patterns are ready, speaking stops feeling like jumping into darkness. It starts feeling like stepping onto a path you have walked before. And the more you walk that path, the more natural it becomes. There will come a day when someone asks you a question in English and you will not feel the old panic. Maybe you will still pause for a second. Maybe your sentence will not be perfect, but you will begin. You will say, I think, or for me, or the main reason is. And once those first words come out, the silence will break. And once silence breaks, confidence has a chance to grow. That is the power of instant response patterns. They break silence, they reduce translation, they guide your thoughts, they give your mouth a beginning. They teach your brain that English is not only something to understand, but something to use. And when you use English again and again through these patterns, your speaking begins to change from a slow mental struggle into a trained response. This is how learners become speakers. Not by waiting until fear disappears. Not by waiting until grammar becomes perfect. Not by waiting until vocabulary feels complete. But by building patterns that allow them to answer now with the English they already have, and then improving through every response. So before you move forward, remember this chapter as a turning point. If you want to speak English naturally, stop trying to invent every sentence under pressure and start building instant response patterns. Give your brain a path, give your mouth a beginning, give your confidence a reason to grow, and give your English a chance to move. Because the learner who has patterns does not enter conversation empty. The learner who has patterns enters conversation prepared, and preparation is what turns fear into action. In the next chapter, we will go deeper into one of the strongest parts of this system, training your mind to think in ready-made English so your answers do not have to travel through translation, hesitation, and fear before they finally become words. Chapter 4. Training your mind to think in ready-made English. There is a stage in every serious English learner's journey where learning more words is no longer enough, studying more grammar is no longer enough, watching more videos is no longer enough, and even memorizing more phrases is no longer enough, because the real problem is no longer only what the learner knows. The real problem is how the learner's mind prepares English before speaking, and until your mind learns to prepare English in ready-made thoughts instead of translating heavy ideas from your native language, your speaking will continue to feel slower than your understanding. This is why many learners feel confused after years of study. They say, I understand English, I know many words, I can read, I can listen, but when I speak, I still feel slow, and the reason is simple but powerful. Their mind is still thinking in one language and trying to speak in another another, and that creates a delay that no amount of passive learning can fully remove. Ready-made English thinking means your brain does not wait for a full native language thought before creating English. Instead, your brain begins to build small English thoughts directly, using familiar patterns, simple structures, common phrases, emotional reactions, and everyday sentence frames that are already connected to meaning, situation, and response. This is not about forcing yourself to think in perfect English all day, because that becomes stressful for many learners. It is about training your mind to prepare common ideas in English before real conversation happens, so when someone asks you a question, your brain does not start from zero, does not run back to translation, and does not panic under pressure. Most learners wait until the conversation begins before they start searching for English, but fluent speakers are different because their minds already have ready-made English for common situations. They already have ways to talk about their day, explain their opinion, describe their feelings, share their goals, ask questions, agree, disagree, continue, and repair mistakes, so when the moment comes, they are not inventing everything from nothing. This is the secret of ready-made English. It gives your brain a head start. A learner without ready-made English hears a question and thinks, "How do I answer this?" A learner with ready-made English hears the same question and thinks, "I already know the path." That difference may look small, but in real conversation, it is the difference between freezing and speaking, between panic and calm, between silence and response. Imagine someone asks you, "Why are you learning English?" If your mind is not trained with ready-made English, you may begin by thinking in your native language, creating a deep answer, searching for exact words, worrying about grammar, and trying to translate everything correctly. But if your mind has ready-made English, your answer begins almost automatically. I'm learning English because I want to speak with more confidence, connect with more people, and create better opportunities for my future. This answer does not require advanced grammar, but it sounds clear, natural, and complete because the thought has already been trained in English. This is what you must understand. Fluency is not always about speaking without thinking. Fluency is about thinking in the right language with the right structure at the right speed. When your thoughts are too heavy, your English becomes heavy. When your thoughts are too translated, your English becomes translated. When your thoughts are too perfect, your English becomes slow. But when your thoughts are simple, direct, and already shaped in English, your speech becomes lighter. The mind of a fluent speaker is not empty before speaking. It is full of familiar English pathways that can be activated quickly, and these pathways are built through repeated English thinking, not only repeated English watching. This is why passive learning alone cannot complete your fluency. Listening and reading give your brain input, and input is important. But if you never convert that input into ready thoughts, your mind remains a receiver, not a responder. It can recognize English, but it cannot produce English quickly enough when life demands a reply. Ready-made English thinking turns passive knowledge into active speech. It takes words you already know and places them into usable thoughts. It takes grammar you already studied and places it into natural sentence shapes. It takes phrases you heard many times and teaches your brain to use them as your own voice. It takes silent understanding and turns it into spoken readiness. The first step in training your mind to think in ready-made English is learning to simplify your ideas before speaking, because many learners do not freeze because English is impossible. They freeze because their original thought is too complex, too emotional, too long, or too detailed to carry into English at their current speaking level. In your native language, your mind can create a large thought instantly because that language is automatic. You can think with emotion, history, detail, humor, and deep meaning without effort. But when you try to transfer that same full thought into English before your English response system is strong, the thought becomes too heavy and your brain struggles to lift it. A ready-made English thinker does not ask, "How do I translate my full native thought?" A ready-made English thinker asks, "What is the simple English version of this idea?" That question is life-changing because it removes unnecessary weight from your brain and allows your English to move. For example, your native language thought may be, "The reason I feel nervous in English conversations is that I am afraid people will judge my accent, misunderstand my intention, and think I am less intelligent than I really am." That thought is real, but it is heavy. The simple English version is, "I feel nervous because I'm afraid of being judged." This sentence is smaller, but it is clear, honest, and speakable. Later, when your fluency grows, you can add more detail. I feel nervous because I'm afraid people will judge my accent or misunderstand me. Later, you can make it even stronger. I feel nervous because I don't want my English mistakes to make people think I'm less capable than I am. But the first goal is not to say everything. The first goal is to say something clearly enough to keep the conversation alive. This is one of the deepest secrets of fluent speaking. You do not need to express your entire mind at once. You need to express one clear piece of your mind, then add another piece, then another piece, until the full meaning appears naturally. Many learners want to speak like their native language self immediately, with the same depth, speed, personality, and emotional power. But this expectation creates pressure. Instead, you must allow your English-speaking self to grow in stages, and the first stage is simple English thinking. Simple English thinking is not weak. Simple English thinking is the foundation of strong speech. A simple thought spoken clearly is more powerful than a complex thought trapped silently in your mind. The second step in ready-made English thinking is building daily English thought lines. These are small sentences you repeat and use in your real life, not as memorized decoration, but as mental pathways for common situations. For example, every morning you can train thoughts like, "Today I want to improve a little. I will practice speaking even if it is not perfect. I need to stay consistent. I can answer simple questions in English." These lines may look small, but they teach your mind to create English from real life, not only from lessons. During the day, you can train action thoughts. I'm making tea. I'm checking my work. I need to finish this task. I'm feeling a little tired. This is easier than before. I should try again. These sentences connect English to daily movement, and when English becomes connected to daily life, it becomes less foreign to your brain. At night, you can train reflection thoughts. Today I practiced a little. I made some mistakes, but I continued. I answered faster than before. Tomorrow I will speak with more confidence. These lines help your mind review life in English, and review builds identity. The purpose of these daily thought lines is not to create perfect English thoughts. The purpose is to make English mentally available throughout the day. If English only appears when you open a book or watch a lesson, your brain treats English like a subject. But if English appears while you live, move, decide, feel, and reflect, your brain begins to treat English like a real communication tool. This is how ready-made English grows, not only in study time, but in lifetime. The third step is creating topic-based ready thoughts, because real conversations usually return to the same common areas: your life, your work, your studies, your family, your goals, your problems, your opinions, your habits, your experiences, and your dreams. If you prepare ready English thoughts for these areas, you will feel much more confident in conversation because you will already have something to say. Start with your identity. Every learner should have ready-made English for self-introduction, because "tell me about yourself" is one of the most common questions in English, and yet many learners freeze because they have never prepared a natural answer. A ready-made self-introduction may sound like this. My name is Safiullah, and I'm working on improving my English speaking. I want to speak more naturally and confidently because English can help me in learning, communication, and future opportunities. Right now, my main focus is not only learning English, but training myself to respond faster in real conversations. This is not too complicated, but it sounds clear because it has identity, goal, reason, and current focus. Then prepare ready-made English about your English journey. You can say, "I have been learning English for some time, and I understand more than I can speak. My biggest challenge is answering quickly without translating, but I am practicing response patterns every day. I believe that if I stay consistent, my speaking will become more natural." This answer is powerful because it explains the exact problem many learners face, and it gives you a way to talk about your journey without feeling lost. Then prepare ready-made English about your goals. You can say, "My goal is to speak English with confidence in real situations. I do not want to depend on translation all the time. I want English to become a natural response so I can express myself without freezing." Then prepare ready-made English about your struggles. You can say, "My biggest struggle is that I know many things in English, but I sometimes become nervous when I need to speak. I think it happens because my brain is still trying to be perfect. Now I am learning to answer simply first and improve later." These prepared thoughts are not cheating. They are training. A musician practices before performing. A speaker rehearses before presenting. An athlete trains before competing. So why should an English learner expect to speak naturally without preparing the thoughts they will use most often? Preparation is not fake. Preparation is how natural ability is built. The fourth step in ready-made English thinking is learning to think in chunks instead of single words, because single-word thinking makes speaking slow. If you think one word at a time, your brain must search again and again, but if you think in chunks, your brain can speak groups of words together. A chunk is a small group of words that naturally belongs together, such as I think that, the main reason is, in my experience, at the same time, what I mean is, it depends on, one of the biggest problems is, I used to think, or now I realize that. These chunks are powerful because they carry grammar inside them. When you say the main reason is, you do not need to think separately about article, adjective, noun, verb, and structure. The chunk comes as one unit, and then you add your idea. This is how fluent speakers speak quickly. They do not speak word by word in their minds, they speak in meaningful chunks. If you want to say, I want to improve my speaking because I feel nervous in conversations, your brain should not build every word separately. It should have chunks like, I want to improve my speaking because I feel nervous and in conversations. When these chunks are familiar, the sentence becomes easier. The more chunks you own, the faster your speaking becomes. But again, owning a chunk means you can use it, not just recognize it. You may have heard the phrase at the same time many times, but can you use it naturally when speaking? You may understand the main reason is, but does it come out when someone asks why? You may know in my opinion, but can you use it without hesitation? This is the difference between passive chunks and active chunks. Passive chunks live in your understanding. Active chunks live in your response system. Your goal is to move useful chunks from passive understanding into active speech. The fifth step is replacing native language thinking with English idea maps. An idea map is a simple English structure that helps you organize thoughts before speaking without translating everything. For example, if the topic is why is English speaking difficult, your idea map can be problem, reason, example, solution. Then your answer becomes, the problem is that many learners understand English but cannot speak quickly. The reason is they still translate in their minds. For example, they hear a simple question, but they try to build a perfect sentence before answering. The solution is to practice response patterns every day. Notice how the answer is organized. You did not translate a full native language paragraph, you used an English idea map. If the topic is my English goal, your idea map can be goal, reason, challenge, action. Then your answer becomes, my goal is to speak English naturally. The reason is that I want more confidence in real conversations. My challenge is that I sometimes freeze when I answer. My action is to practice simple questions out loud every day. If the topic is my daily routine, your idea map can be morning, work or study, practice, evening. Then your answer becomes, in the morning, I try to start my day with a clear mind. During the day, I focus on my work and responsibilities. I also try to practice English for a short time. In the evening, I review what I learned and prepare for the next day. Idea maps are powerful because they give your mind direction. Without direction, thoughts become messy, and messy thoughts are difficult to express in English. With direction, even simple English sounds organized. The sixth step is training English reactions, because thinking in English is not only about long answers, it is also about quick reactions, and quick reactions make conversation feel alive. Many learners can prepare long answers, but they struggle with small, natural reactions like, really? That makes sense? I understand? That sounds interesting. I'm sorry to hear that. Exactly. I'm not sure about that. That's a good point. Let me think. I see what you mean. These reactions are small, but they are extremely important because they keep you active in conversation. Without reactions, you may understand everything but still look silent, cold, or disconnected. With reactions, you show that you are present, listening, and engaged. Ready-made English thinking includes these small reactions because real conversation is not only answer after answer, it is also listening, reacting, encouraging, supporting, questioning, and continuing. If someone says, "I finally got the job," you need a ready reaction. That's amazing, congratulations. If someone says, "I'm having a hard time," you need a ready reaction. I'm sorry to hear that. What happened? If someone explains an idea, you need a ready reaction. That makes sense. If someone says something surprising, you need a ready reaction. Really? I didn't know that. These reactions reduce pressure because you do not need to create a full answer immediately. Sometimes a reaction gives you time to think, and sometimes it is the perfect response by itself. A learner who knows reactions sounds more fluent because they are not waiting silently for their turn. They are participating in the rhythm of conversation. The 7th step is training your inner voice in English because your inner voice controls your speaking confidence more than you realize. If your inner voice says, "I will make a mistake, my English is bad, people will laugh, or I cannot speak," then your body becomes tense before you even start talking. You need ready-made English thoughts not only for conversation with others, but also for conversation with yourself. Your inner voice should say, "I can answer simply. I do not need perfect English to communicate." A short answer is better than silence. Mistakes are part of training. I am building my response system. I can start with simple words. I can explain another way. I can continue even if I make a mistake. These thoughts are not just motivational lines, they are mental instructions. When pressure appears, your brain follows the strongest instruction available. If the strongest instruction is fear, you freeze. If the strongest instruction is response, you begin. This is why you must train your inner English voice before real conversation. You cannot wait until fear attacks and then try to become confident instantly. Confidence is prepared through repeated thoughts, repeated actions, and repeated evidence. Every time you tell yourself, "I can answer simply," and then you actually answer a question out loud, your brain receives evidence. Every time you say, "Mistakes are part of training," and then continue after a mistake, your brain receives evidence. Every time you say, "I do not need to translate everything," and then respond with a simple pattern, your brain receives evidence. Confidence grows when your brain sees proof. Ready-made English thinking gives your brain proof because it turns English from a mysterious challenge into a repeatable action. The 8th step is practicing mental rehearsal because the brain improves when it sees the situation before the situation happens. Many confident speakers rehearse without noticing it, and many nervous learners suffer because they never rehearse real speaking moments. Mental rehearsal means you imagine a real English situation and practice your response in advance. Imagine someone asking you, "Can you introduce yourself?" and you answer out loud. Imagine someone asking, "Why do you want to improve your English?" and you answer out loud. Imagine someone asking, "What is difficult for you?" and you answer out loud. This prepares your mind for the moment. When the real situation comes, your brain says, "I have seen this before." That feeling reduces fear. This is why ready-made English is not fake, it is rehearsal for reality. If you know you may need English in an interview, rehearse interview answers. If you may need English while traveling, rehearse travel situations. If you may need English for online meetings, rehearse meeting responses. If you may need English for casual friendship, rehearse friendly questions. The more your rehearsal matches your real life, the more useful your English becomes. Many learners practice random sentences they will never use, and then they feel unprepared when real life asks different questions. Do not make that mistake. Train the English that belongs to your future. The 9th step is learning to think in answer shapes because every strong answer has a shape. When your mind knows the shape, it can fill the answer faster. One answer shape is short answer plus reason. For example, "Yes, I agree because practice creates confidence." Another answer shape is opinion plus example. For example, "I think speaking is difficult for many learners." For example, they understand English videos, but they freeze in real conversations. Another answer shape is past plus present. For example, "I used to translate every sentence, but now I try to answer with simple English." Another answer shape is problem plus solution. For example, the problem is that learners wait for perfect English. The solution is to practice simple responses every day. Another answer shape is feeling plus reason. For example, "I feel more confident now because I practice out loud." These shapes help your brain organize quickly. Without answer shapes, your mind searches randomly. With answer shapes, your mind knows what kind of sentence comes next. This is why ready-made English thinking must be structured. It is not only about thinking English words, it is about thinking in English shapes that can become spoken answers. The 10th step is creating automatic sentence starters because sentence starters are the key to breaking silence. Many learners can continue after starting, but they cannot start quickly enough, so they need ready-made openings. Your sentence starters should include, "I think," "For me," "In my experience," "The main reason is," One thing I noticed is, I used to think, now I realize, it depends on, what I mean is, let me explain it simply. That is a good question. I would say, honestly, I feel, from my point of view, these starters are like keys. Each key opens a different door. I think opens opinion. For me, opens personal experience. The main reason is opens explanation. I used to think opens transformation. What I mean is opens clarification. Let me explain opens structure. That is a good question. Opens thinking time. When you have keys, you do not stand outside the conversation helplessly. You open the door and enter. Practice these starters until they become automatic. Say them with different ideas, different emotions, different speeds, and different situations. Do not only read them once, make them part of your speaking body. The 11th step is learning to think in English endings because many learners start an answer but do not know how to finish it. They continue too long, repeat themselves, or stop suddenly because the mind has no closing path. Ready-made endings include, that is the main reason, that is how I see it, that is why it matters. So for me, that is very important. That is what I am working on now. That is the biggest lesson I learned. So yes, I think it makes a big difference. Endings give your answer control. A speaker with control sounds confident. A speaker without endings may sound unsure even when their ideas are good. So train endings the same way you train beginnings. For example, if you answer, I am learning English because I want better opportunities, you can finish with, that is what motivates me to keep practicing. If you explain, translation makes speaking slow, you can finish with, that is why I am training myself to respond directly in English. If you share a struggle, I sometimes freeze when I speak, you can finish with, but I am improving because I practice every day. A good ending makes your answer feel complete. The 12th step is practicing ready-made English with speed levels, because if you only practice slowly, your English may remain slow, but if you jump too quickly, you may panic. Speed levels help you grow safely. Level 1 is slow and clear. You answer slowly and focus on structure. Level 2 is normal speed. You answer naturally without overthinking. Level 3 is quick response. You give yourself only a few seconds to start. This system teaches your brain to move from accuracy to fluency. At level 1, you build the sentence. At level 2, you build comfort. At level 3, you build speed. Do not skip level 1 because structure matters. Do not stay forever at level 1 because conversation needs speed. Move through the levels patiently. For example, practice the question, why do you want to speak English better? At level 1, say slowly, I want to speak English better because it can help me communicate with more confidence. At level 2, say naturally, I want to speak better because English can give me more confidence and better opportunities. At level 3, answer quickly, because I want more confidence and better opportunities. All three are useful. The first builds structure, the second builds natural flow, and the third builds instant response. This is ready-made thinking in action. Your brain learns the full version, the natural version, and the quick version. Then in real life, it can choose what fits the moment. The 13th step is training flexible thinking. Because ready-made English does not mean fixed memorized answers. It means prepared ideas that can change according to the situation. For example, your ready thought may be, I am learning English because I want better opportunities. But in a work situation, you can adjust it, I am improving my English because it helps me communicate professionally. In a personal conversation, you can adjust it, I'm learning English because I want to feel more confident when I talk to people. In a study situation, you can adjust it. English helps me access more learning resources and understand the world better. The core idea stays the same, but the expression changes. That is flexibility. A memorized learner repeats one answer exactly. A ready-made thinker adapts the answer. This is why you should not memorize long paragraphs blindly. You should prepare idea blocks that can be moved, changed, shortened, and expanded. An idea block is a small, meaningful piece like, I want more confidence. I struggle with translating. I practice daily questions. I believe mistakes are part of learning, or I want English to become natural. These blocks can appear in many answers. If someone asks about your goal, you use "I want more confidence." If someone asks about your struggle, you use "I struggle with translating." If someone asks about your method, you use "I practice daily questions." If someone asks about mistakes, you use "I believe mistakes are part of learning." Same blocks, different answers. This is how fluent speakers recycle language naturally. They do not create everything new. They reuse ideas in fresh ways. The 14th step is using English thinking moments throughout the day. You do not need long study hours to train this skill. Although deep practice is helpful, you can also use small moments while walking, while waiting, while cooking, while traveling, while preparing to sleep. Ask yourself small questions in English. What am I doing now? How do I feel? What do I need to do next? What did I learn today? What is one thing I can improve? Then answer simply. This creates a constant connection between life and English. If you are waiting for something, say in your mind, "I'm waiting and I have a few minutes to practice." If you feel tired, say, "I feel tired, but I still want to do one small thing." If you make a mistake, say, "That was not perfect, but I can try again." If you finish work, say, "I finished this task and now I can relax." These tiny English thoughts may not look powerful at first, but they accumulate. They make English familiar to your brain. They reduce the distance between English and real life. They prepare your mind for speaking because your mind has already been using English silently. But remember, silent thinking should support speaking, not replace it. Thinking in English is useful, but you must also speak out loud. Otherwise, your English may become active in your mind but still weak in your mouth. So combine both. Think in English during the day. Speak English out loud during practice. Use patterns in real conversation when possible. This combination builds the full response system. The 15th step is understanding that ready-made English thinking changes your emotional relationship with speaking. When your mind has nothing prepared, every question feels like a threat. But when your mind has ready English, every question feels more manageable. This reduces anxiety because uncertainty becomes smaller. Fear often comes from not knowing what will happen. Ready-made English does not control every situation, but it gives you tools for common situations, and tools create security. When you know you can say, "Could you repeat that, please?" you are less afraid of not understanding. When you know you can say, "Let me think for a second," you are less afraid of needing time. When you know you can say, "What I mean is," you are less afraid of mistakes. When you know you can say, "I see your point, but," you are less afraid of disagreement. When you know you can say, "That is a good question," you are less afraid of difficult questions. These phrases are not only language tools, they are emotional safety tools. They tell your brain, "I have a way to handle this." And when your brain feels it has a way, it does not panic as easily. This is why ready-made English thinking builds confidence from the inside. Confidence is not only a feeling, it is the result of having usable tools and repeated proof that you can use them. The 16th step is avoiding the trap of over-preparation. This may sound opposite to everything we have said, but it is important. Ready-made English should prepare you, not imprison you. If you memorize one perfect answer and become afraid to change it, you are still not fluent. You are only reciting. Real fluency means you can use prepared language flexibly. So when you practice ready-made thoughts, always change something. Change the beginning, change the ending, change the example, change the emotion, change the length. Say the same idea in a short way, then a medium way, then a longer way. For example, short, "I'm learning English for confidence." Medium, "I'm learning English because I want to speak with more confidence in real conversations." Long, "I'm learning English because I want to stop feeling nervous when I speak, express my thoughts more clearly, and communicate with people without translating everything in my mind. This exercise teaches your brain that the idea is yours, not just the sentence. When the idea is yours, you can express it many ways. That is real speaking. The 17th step is developing a personal English voice. Many learners copy sentences from teachers, books, videos, and lessons, and this is useful in the beginning, but eventually you must make English sound like you, not like someone else. Ready-made English thinking helps you create your voice because you prepare thoughts connected to your real life, real emotions, real goals, and real struggles. When you say, "I used to translate too much, but now I am training myself to respond directly," that sentence is not just English, it is your journey. When you say, "I want English to become natural because I want to express myself without fear," that is your voice. Your English voice does not need to be perfect to be real. It needs to be honest, clear, and active. As you continue training, your voice will become smoother, stronger, and more natural, but it must begin with simple truth. This is why personal ready-made thoughts are more powerful than random textbook sentences. A textbook may teach you how to say, "The weather is pleasant today," but your real life may need, "I feel nervous when I speak, but I am improving." One sentence is correct, but the other sentence is alive for your journey. Train the English you actually need. Train the English that tells your story. Train the English that solves your speaking problems. Train the English that you can use tomorrow. The 18th step is building a weekly ready English routine. Without a routine, your practice depends on mood, and mood is not reliable. Some days you feel motivated, some days you feel tired, some days you feel busy, and if your English depends only on motivation, your progress becomes weak. A simple routine can change everything. On day 1, prepare self-introduction thoughts. On day 2, prepare opinion thoughts. On day 3, prepare experience thoughts. On day 4, prepare problem solution thoughts. On day 5, prepare emotional reaction thoughts. On day 6, practice question back and conversation flow. On day 7, review everything out loud. This routine is simple enough to follow and strong enough to build readiness. For each day, choose 5 ready-made thoughts and speak each one in 3 ways: short, natural, and detailed. For example, opinion day, short, "I think practice is important." Natural, "I think practice is important because English improves through use." Detailed, "I think practice is more important than waiting for confidence because the brain becomes faster when it repeats real responses every day." This method builds flexibility, speed, and depth. It teaches your brain to expand and reduce ideas according to the situation. In a quick conversation, use the short version. In a normal conversation, use the natural version. In a deeper discussion, use the detailed version. This is how ready-made English becomes intelligent, not robotic. The 19th step is learning to trust simple English under pressure. This may be the hardest step for many learners because they feel that simple English makes them look weak, but the opposite is often true. Simple English used confidently sounds stronger than complicated English used painfully. When someone asks a question, your first job is not to impress them. Your first job is to answer clearly. If you can answer clearly, you can continue. If you continue, you can add detail. If you add detail, you can sound stronger. But if you wait for an impressive sentence and say nothing, the conversation stops before your intelligence can appear. Simple English is the door to deeper English. Open the door first, then enter deeper. A ready-made English thinker understands this order. They do not try to produce the most beautiful sentence first. They produce a clear sentence first, then build from there. For example, if someone asks, "What is your biggest English problem?" you can start simply, "My biggest problem is answering quickly," then add, "I usually understand the question, but I start translating in my mind," then add, "That is why I am practicing response patterns, because I want English to come out naturally." Now your answer has become strong, but it started simply. This is exactly how you should speak. Start clear, add reason, add example, add conclusion. This method keeps your brain calm because it does not demand everything at once. The 20th step is understanding that ready-made English thinking is a bridge to natural thinking, not the final destination. At first, you prepare thoughts intentionally, then you repeat them, then you use them in different situations, then your brain begins to create similar thoughts automatically. Eventually, you do not feel like you are using prepared English because the patterns become part of your natural mind. This is similar to learning to drive. At first, you think about every movement, but later the movements become automatic. At first, you think about every English pattern, but later the patterns become automatic. At first, you prepare English thoughts, but later English thoughts begin to appear by themselves. That is the real goal. Not to memorize forever, not to prepare every sentence forever, but to train your brain so English becomes ready by itself. This happens through repetition, connection, and use. The more you use ready-made English thoughts, the more your brain learns how English ideas are shaped. The more it learns the shape, the more it can create new thoughts without translation. The more it creates new thoughts, the more speaking becomes natural. This is the path from prepared English to automatic English, and every learner can walk this path. You do not need a special talent. You do not need to live in an English-speaking country. You do not need to know every grammar rule. You need a system, repetition, and courage to speak before your English feels perfect. The biggest change in this chapter is that you must stop waiting for English to appear during conversation and start preparing English before conversation, not through memorizing long, unnatural scripts, but through building ready thoughts, ready chunks, ready reactions, ready openings, ready endings, and ready idea maps that your brain can use when pressure arrives. From today, do not only learn English words, prepare English thoughts. Do not only study grammar, prepare English answer shapes. Do not only watch fluent speakers, prepare the patterns fluent speakers use. Do not only understand English, prepare English that can come out of your mouth. Ask yourself every day, what are the 5 English thoughts I need most in my life? Then prepare them, speak them, change them, use them, own them. Maybe you need thoughts about your goals. Maybe you need thoughts about your work. Maybe you need thoughts about your studies. Maybe you need thoughts about your confidence. Maybe you need thoughts about your English journey. Maybe you need thoughts about your daily routine. Whatever you need, prepare it in English. Because the English you prepare becomes the English you can use, and the English you use becomes the English that feels natural. This is how your response system grows from the inside. Chapter 3 gave you patterns, and Chapter 4 teaches you how to turn those patterns into ready-made English thinking. Together, they begin to replace translation with direct English, replace panic with structure, and replace silence with response. The learner who translates waits for English. The learner who prepares ready-made English carries English. And when you carry English inside your mind, conversation no longer feels like a sudden attack. It feels like a place where your prepared thoughts can finally become your voice. So the next time someone asks you a question in English, remember this. You do not need to build everything from zero. You can start with a ready thought, a ready pattern, a ready opening, a ready idea map, or a ready reaction, and once you start, your English will have movement. Movement creates confidence. Confidence creates more speaking. More speaking creates fluency. And fluency begins to feel possible when your mind no longer waits for translation but reaches for English that is already awake inside you. This is the power of ready-made English thinking. It is the moment your English stops being a subject you study from the outside and starts becoming a voice you can activate from the inside. It is the moment you stop asking, how do I translate this, and begin asking, what is the simple English idea? It is the moment you stop carrying heavy native language thoughts into English and start building lighter, clearer, stronger English thoughts directly. And once your mind learns this, you are ready for the next chapter, where we will explore the connection between speed and confidence, and why answering faster does not begin with talking faster, but with removing the fear, pressure, and mental delays that have been slowing your English down for years. Chapter 5. The Speed-Confidence Connection. There is a powerful connection between speed and confidence that most English learners never understand, and because they never understand it, they spend years trying to become confident before they speak, when in reality, confidence often begins to appear only after the brain learns how to respond with less delay, less translation, less panic, and less fear of being judged. Most learners say, I will speak English when I become confident, but this sentence keeps them trapped, because confidence is not something that comes before speaking like a gift from the sky. Confidence is usually something that grows after repeated speaking experiences prove to your brain that you can survive the moment, answer the question, make a mistake, recover, continue, and still be understood. This is why speed matters. But you must understand speed correctly. Speed does not mean speaking like a native speaker from the beginning. Speed does not mean rushing your words. Speed does not mean ignoring pronunciation. Speed does not mean talking fast while your thoughts are confused. Real speaking speed means your brain can begin the answer without freezing. Real speaking speed means you can choose a simple response before fear takes control. Real speaking speed means the gap between hearing a question and giving an answer becomes shorter, calmer, and more natural. The learner who waits too long before answering begins to feel pressure, and that pressure creates more fear, the listener's face, the silence in the room, the feeling that someone is waiting, the thought that your English is being judged. All of these things become heavier with every passing second, and soon the learner is no longer only answering a question, the learner is fighting an emotional storm inside the mind. This is why long hesitation can destroy confidence. A small pause is natural. Thinking for a moment is normal. Even fluent speakers pause sometimes. But when every simple question creates a long inner battle, your brain begins to associate English conversation with danger, and the next time someone speaks to you in English, fear arrives even earlier because your mind remembers the last struggle. This is how hesitation becomes a habit. First, you hesitate because you are unsure. Then you feel embarrassed because you hesitated. Then you fear the next conversation because you remember the embarrassment. Then the fear makes you hesitate again. And the cycle continues. The goal of the English response system is to break this cycle by teaching your brain to begin with simple English before hesitation becomes panic. When you can begin even with a small sentence, something changes inside you. Your brain receives a new message. I answered. I did not disappear. I did not die. The conversation continued. This message is important because confidence is built from evidence, and every response becomes evidence. If you answer once, your brain gets one piece of evidence. If you answer 10 times, your brain gets 10 pieces of evidence. If you answer 100 times, your brain starts changing its belief. It no longer believes English speaking is dangerous. It begins to believe English speaking is something I can handle. That belief is confidence. Many learners try to build confidence by thinking positive thoughts, and positive thoughts can help, but positive thoughts without action are weak. If you tell yourself, I am confident, but never answer real questions out loud, your brain does not fully believe you because it has no proof. But if you answer simple questions every day, even imperfectly, your brain begins to trust your words because your actions support them. Confidence is not just motivation. Confidence is memory. It is the memory of many small moments when you responded instead of escaping. It is the memory of saying something even when you were nervous. It is the memory of making a mistake and continuing. It is the memory of being understood. It is the memory of starting before you felt ready. This is why response speed builds confidence so strongly. It gives the brain repeated successful memories of movement. Not perfect movement, just movement. Movement is the enemy of freezing. Freezing says, wait until you are safe. Movement says, start with what you have. Freezing says, translate first. Movement says, answer simply. Freezing says, what if they judge me? Movement says, let the conversation continue. Every time you choose movement, the freezing habit becomes weaker. But many learners misunderstand this and try to force themselves to speak quickly before their mind is ready. They think, if fluent people speak fast, I must speak fast too, and then they rush, lose control, mispronounce words, forget ideas, and feel even more embarrassed. This is not the kind of speed we want. The speed you need is not mouth speed first. It is response speed first. Mouth speed is how fast words come out. Response speed is how fast your brain chooses a clear path. A learner can speak slowly but still sound confident if the answer begins naturally, the idea is clear, and the voice is calm. Another learner can speak fast but sound confused if the words are rushed, unorganized, and full of panic. So do not chase fast talking. Chase fast beginning. If someone asks, why are you learning English? Your goal is not to deliver a perfect long answer at native speed. Your goal is to begin calmly with a simple pattern. I'm learning English because I want more confidence. Once you begin, you can add more. I also want better opportunities and the ability to speak without translating. Now the answer is moving, and because it is moving, your confidence has space to grow. This is the first rule of the speed-confidence connection. The faster you begin with simple English, the less time fear has to control you. Fear grows in silence, confidence grows in response. This does not mean you must answer instantly like a machine. It means you should train your brain to begin within a short, calm window before your mind starts creating too many doubts. A useful goal is the 3-second start. When you hear a question, give yourself around 3 seconds to begin with a simple phrase. That's a good question. I think, for me, the main reason is, I would say, it depends. In my experience, these phrases are not complete answers, but they start the answer, and starting is the most important part. Once you start with a phrase like, I think, your brain is already inside English. It is no longer standing outside the conversation, trying to translate a full response before entering. The first phrase becomes a bridge, and that bridge gives your mind time to continue. For example, someone asks, do you think English is difficult? Instead of staying silent while trying to build the perfect answer, begin with, I think it depends. This gives you movement. Then add, it is difficult if you only study grammar, but it becomes easier when you practice speaking every day. The answer is clear, natural, and useful. The phrase "I think it depends" buys you time, but it does not look like panic because it is a normal English response. This is how fluent speakers manage time inside conversation. They do not always know the full answer before they start, but they know how to start in a way that gives their brain room to think. This is a major skill. Fluent speakers think while speaking. Learners often think before speaking. That difference creates speed. When you think before speaking, your mind must finish everything privately before your mouth begins, and this creates long silence. When you think while speaking, your mouth begins with a safe pattern, and your mind organizes the answer as you continue. This is why response patterns from the previous chapter are so important. They are not just phrases, they are thinking tools. They help your brain begin before the entire answer is ready, and once the answer begins, confidence becomes easier. The second rule of the speed-confidence connection is that simple answers create faster confidence than perfect answers. A perfect answer that takes too long often destroys the conversation. A simple answer that comes quickly keeps the conversation alive. If someone asks, "How was your day?" and you take 10 seconds trying to create a beautiful sentence, the pressure grows. But if you say, "It was good, just a little busy," the conversation continues naturally. The answer is not advanced, but it works, and working English builds confidence. Working English is English that communicates the meaning clearly enough for the moment. It may not be perfect, it may not be impressive, it may not use advanced vocabulary, but it does the job. And in real conversation, English that does the job is powerful. Many learners delay because they are searching for impressive English. They want every sentence to prove their intelligence, but real communication does not require you to prove yourself in every sentence. It requires you to connect, respond, and continue. Confidence grows when your brain realizes that simple English is enough to begin. Once you trust simple English, you stop fearing every question. When someone asks you something, you think, "I can start simply." That thought alone removes a large amount of pressure. And when pressure decreases, speed increases. The third rule is that speed improves when decisions become smaller. One reason learners speak slowly is that every answer feels like a huge decision. They ask themselves, which tense should I use? Which word is best? Should I say it formally? Will my pronunciation be correct? Is this sentence natural? What if I make a mistake? These are too many decisions for one moment, and when the brain faces too many decisions, it slows down. Response patterns reduce decisions. If someone asks your opinion, you do not decide from the whole English language, you choose an opinion pattern. If someone asks why, you choose a reason pattern. If someone asks about your experience, you choose a story pattern. If someone says something emotional, you choose a reaction pattern. The decision becomes smaller, and smaller decisions are faster. This is why structure creates freedom. Many learners think structure will make them less natural, but in the beginning, structure makes natural speech possible. Without structure, the brain feels lost. With structure, the brain has direction, and when direction becomes familiar, speech begins to flow. Think about driving again. A road does not limit the car. The road allows the car to move safely. Without a road, movement becomes difficult. Response structures are the roads of speaking. The fourth rule is that confidence grows when your brain has recovery tools. Many learners are slow because they are terrified of what will happen if the sentence goes wrong. They delay the answer because they want to avoid mistakes completely, but if your brain believes mistakes are dangerous, it will always slow you down. You need recovery patterns so your brain knows mistakes can be repaired. If you say something wrong, you can say, "Sorry, what I mean is." If your sentence becomes confusing, you can say, "Let me say that again." If you forget a word, you can say, "I don't know the exact word, but I mean." If you need more time, you can say, "Let me think for a second." If you did not understand, you can say, "Could you repeat that, please?" These phrases are confidence tools because they reduce the fear of failure. A learner without recovery tools feels that one mistake can destroy the whole conversation. A learner with recovery tools knows that one mistake is only a small turn in the road. When mistakes become repairable, speaking becomes less dangerous. When speaking becomes less dangerous, response speed increases. This is why you should practice recovery phrases before you need them. Do not wait until a real mistake happens and then panic. Train your mouth to say, "What I mean is," naturally. Train yourself to say, "Let me say that again," calmly. Train yourself to explain around missing words. Then your brain will not fear mistakes as much because it knows you have a way out. The fifth rule is that speed grows through repeated small wins, not through one big breakthrough. Many learners wait for a magical day when they will suddenly speak fluently, but fluency does not usually arrive like a sudden explosion. It grows quietly through hundreds of small moments when you answer a little faster, hesitate a little less, translate a little less, and continue a little longer. A small win is answering a question in one sentence. A small win is starting with "I think" instead of staying silent. A small win is asking back, "What about you?" A small win is saying, "Could you repeat that?" A small win is correcting yourself without shame. A small win is speaking for 30 seconds when before you could only speak for 10. These small wins may not look dramatic, but they are the bricks of confidence. Every brick matters. Confidence is not built by one perfect performance. Confidence is built by repeated proof. The brain changes when proof becomes consistent. If you want your brain to believe "I can answer in English," you must give it daily proof, not weekly proof, not monthly proof, not only proof when you feel motivated, but daily proof through simple spoken responses. This is why a 5-minute daily response drill can be more powerful than one long study session once a week. Daily practice tells your brain that English speaking is normal, and when something becomes normal, fear decreases. The sixth rule is that speed must be trained in levels. Level 1 is comfort speed. Comfort speed means you speak slowly enough to stay calm and clear. This level is important because you need to build a safe relationship with your voice. If you are always rushing, your body will connect English with stress, but if you practice calmly, your body learns that English can feel safe. At comfort speed, answer questions with no pressure. Say, "I am learning English because I want to speak with more confidence." Say it clearly. Feel the structure. Let your mouth get used to the words. Level 2 is natural speed. Natural speed means you speak like you would speak in a normal conversation, not too slow and not too fast. At this level, your goal is flow. You are no longer analyzing every word, but you are still staying clear. At natural speed, answer the same question again. "I'm learning English because I want to speak more confidently," and stop translating every sentence. This feels more conversational. Level 3 is response speed. Response speed means you practice beginning quickly. The answer may be short, but the start must come faster. Someone asks, "Why are you learning English?" and you quickly begin, "Because I want more confidence." Then you add, "I want to answer naturally without translating." This level trains the brain to break silence. Do not stay only at comfort speed because real conversation will still feel difficult. Do not jump only to response speed because you may become tense and messy. Train all 3 levels. Comfort builds calm. Natural speed builds flow. Response speed builds confidence under pressure. The 7th rule is that speed is not only mental, it is physical. Your mouth, tongue, breath, and voice must become comfortable with English movement. Many learners think speaking is only inside the brain, but even when the brain knows the sentence, the mouth may feel slow because it has not practiced the sound combinations enough. This is why you may be able to write a sentence easily but struggle to say it smoothly. Writing uses the hand and eyes, but speaking uses breath, muscles, rhythm, and sound. If your mouth has not practiced English movements, your speech may feel heavy even when your mind understands. To build speaking speed, practice out loud. Not silently, not only in your head, out loud. Take a simple sentence and repeat it naturally. "I think it depends on the situation." Say it slowly, then naturally, then a little faster. Take another sentence. "The main reason is that I still translate before speaking." Say it until your mouth becomes comfortable. Take another. "What I mean is, I need more speaking practice." Repeat it until it feels easier. This is not childish. This is fluency training. A singer repeats lines. An actor repeats dialogue. A speaker rehearses sentences. An English learner must also train the mouth. The 8th rule is that rhythm creates speed. English has rhythm, and when learners ignore rhythm, their speech becomes stiff. They may pronounce words one by one with equal pressure, and this makes speaking feel slow and unnatural. But when you learn to speak in chunks with rhythm, your English becomes smoother. For example, do not say every word separately like, "I think it is important because it helps me." Say it in chunks. "I think it's important / because it helps me speak with more confidence." Chunks create rhythm. Rhythm creates flow. Flow creates confidence. Practice chunking your answers. Take a sentence and divide it into meaning groups. I'm learning English because I want better opportunities and more confidence in conversations. This is easier for your mouth and easier for the listener. When you speak in chunks, you also give your brain small rest points. You do not need to hold the whole sentence at once. You move through one chunk, then the next, then the next. This makes longer answers easier. The ninth rule is that speed improves when you stop translating emotions. Many learners can talk about simple facts, but they freeze when they need to express feelings because emotions are deeply connected to the native language. Words like nervous, embarrassed, proud, confused, motivated, disappointed, comfortable, uncomfortable, hopeful, and frustrated must become ready in English if you want to speak naturally. If someone asks, "How do you feel about speaking English?" you should not need to translate your emotion from your language. You should have ready emotional English. I feel nervous, but I still want to try. I feel more confident than before. I feel frustrated when I cannot find words. I feel proud when I answer without translating. I feel uncomfortable when people judge my mistakes. I feel motivated because I can see progress. These emotional sentences build a deeper response system because real conversation is not only about information, it is about feelings, experiences, fears, hopes, and identity. When you can express feelings quickly, your English becomes more human. And when your English becomes more human, confidence grows because you feel that English can carry your real self, not only your textbook self. The 10th rule is that speed grows when you stop treating every conversation like an exam. This is one of the biggest mental blocks for learners. They hear English and immediately feel tested. They imagine that the other person is checking grammar, pronunciation, vocabulary, accent, and intelligence. Because of this, they become tense before speaking, and tension slows everything down. But real conversation is not an exam. Real conversation is an exchange of meaning. Most people are not waiting to grade you. They are waiting to understand you. This shift can change your speaking. If you believe every conversation is an exam, you will speak like a student under pressure. If you believe every conversation is an exchange, you will speak like a human sharing meaning. A student tries to avoid mistakes. A communicator tries to express meaning. A student waits for approval. A communicator keeps the conversation alive. A student fears correction. A communicator learns from interaction. Your goal is not to become a perfect student of English. Your goal is to become a communicator in English. When you carry this identity, speed becomes easier because you stop asking, "Is this perfect?" and start asking, "Is this clear enough?" That one question reduces pressure instantly. Is this clear enough? If yes, speak. If not, simplify. Do not wait for perfect. Speak clear enough, then improve. The 11th rule is that your first answer should be easy, not complete. When someone asks you a question, do not try to say everything immediately. Begin with an easy first answer, then add layers. Question: why is English important for you? Easy first answer: because it gives me confidence. Second layer: it also helps me communicate with more people. Third layer: and I believe it can create better opportunities in my future. Now you have a full answer, but you built it step by step. This reduces pressure because your brain does not need to hold the full answer before starting. Many learners freeze because they try to prepare the full answer first. They want introduction, explanation, example, and conclusion before saying the first word. But fluent speakers often begin with one simple thought and expand as they speak. This is called layered speaking. Layer 1, direct answer. Layer 2, reason. Layer 3, detail. Layer 4, example. Layer 5, conclusion. You can stop at any layer depending on the conversation. If the moment is casual, 1 or 2 layers are enough. If the moment is deep, add more layers. This makes your English flexible. The 12th rule is that response speed must be connected to listening speed. Sometimes learners answer slowly because they do not listen for meaning. They listen for every word, and when they miss one word, they panic. But fluent listeners focus on the main message first, then details. If someone asks, "What do you usually do when you have free time?" you do not need to analyze every word. The main message is free time activities. Once you catch that, you can answer, "In my free time, I usually watch videos, practice English, or relax with my family." Simple. If someone asks, "What was the most difficult part of learning English for you?" the main message is difficult part. Answer: the most difficult part is speaking without translating. Simple. If someone asks, "Do you prefer learning English alone or with other people?" the main message is preference. Answer: I prefer practicing alone first, but speaking with people helps me improve faster. Simple. Train yourself to catch the question type. Is it asking what? Is it asking why? Is it asking how? Is it asking preference? Is it asking experience? Is it asking opinion? When you catch the type, you choose the pattern faster. Listening for question type is one of the fastest ways to improve response speed. The 13th rule is that confidence becomes stronger when you can handle silence. This may sound surprising because we are talking about speed, but confident speakers are not terrified of every pause. They can pause for a moment without collapsing inside. The problem is not silence itself. The problem is fearful silence. A calm pause is powerful. A panic pause is painful. If you need a moment, use an English thinking phrase. That's a good question. Let me think for a second. I would say, honestly, I'm not completely sure, but these phrases turn silence into communication. They show the listener that you are still present. They give your brain a moment to organize. They keep you inside English. This is very different from silent panic, where your eyes drop, your mind translates, and your confidence disappears. So the goal is not to remove every pause. The goal is to control the pause. A controlled pause supports confidence. An uncontrolled pause feeds fear. Practice controlled pauses when you train. Ask yourself a question, say, "Let me think for a second," pause briefly, then answer. This teaches your nervous system that you can take time without escaping. The 14th rule is that confidence grows when your voice sounds committed. Many learners speak with a weak voice because they are unsure, and the weak voice makes them feel even less confident. They speak quietly, hide their words, reduce their energy, and almost apologize for existing in English. This sends a message to the brain: I am not safe. You do not need to shout. You do not need to sound aggressive, but you need to speak with enough voice to prove to yourself that you are willing to be heard. Your voice affects your mind. When you speak too quietly, your brain feels small. When you speak clearly, your brain feels stronger. Practice saying simple answers with a steady voice. I think English becomes easier with daily practice. For me, speaking is difficult, but I am improving. The main reason is that I still translate, but I am learning to respond faster. Say these sentences like you believe they deserve to be heard. This is not acting. This is training your speaking identity. A confident voice is built through repeated use. The 15th rule is that speed improves when you stop restarting every sentence after a mistake. Many learners begin a sentence, make one small mistake, stop, restart, make another mistake, stop again, and soon the whole answer becomes broken. They think restarting will make the sentence better, but it often destroys flow. Instead of restarting, learn to continue and repair. If you say, I am learning English since 2 years, you do not need to panic. You can continue. I have been learning English for 2 years and now I want to improve my speaking. This is natural. You repaired the mistake and continued. If you say, my speaking is not come fast, you can repair. What I mean is, my answers do not come quickly yet, then continue. This skill is extremely powerful because it teaches your brain that mistakes are not walls, they are small bumps. When you stop restarting, your speaking becomes smoother. When your speaking becomes smoother, your confidence grows. The 16th rule is that you must practice under gentle pressure, because if you only practice when everything is comfortable, real conversation will still feel shocking. But if the pressure is too high, you may panic and give up. The solution is gentle pressure. Gentle pressure means timed practice, recording yourself, answering random questions, speaking to a mirror, practicing with a partner, or giving yourself only a few seconds to begin. It is not dangerous, but it is slightly uncomfortable, and that slight discomfort is where growth happens. Comfort practice teaches clarity. Gentle pressure practice teaches readiness. Real conversation needs both. Start with easy questions. What is your name? Where are you from? What do you do? Why are you learning English? What is difficult for you? What do you enjoy? Answer with a 3-second start. Then practice medium questions. What do you think about learning English online? Why do many learners understand but cannot speak? What is the best way to build confidence? What mistake did you make in your English journey? Answer with patterns. Then practice deeper questions. How has English changed your thinking? What kind of speaker do you want to become? What fear do you need to overcome? What is the difference between learning English and using English? These questions train your mind at different levels. Easy questions build safety. Medium questions build structure. Deep questions build expression. The 17th rule is that confidence grows when you track response progress, not only knowledge progress. Many learners track how many words they learned, how many grammar lessons they completed, or how many videos they watched, but they do not track how many questions they answered. Because of this, they may feel they are learning, but their speaking does not improve at the same speed. Track speaking progress differently. How many questions did you answer out loud today? How many answers did you begin within 3 seconds? How many times did you avoid translation? How many times did you use a response pattern? How many times did you repair a mistake and continue? How many times did you ask a question back? These are real speaking measurements. If you want speaking confidence, measure speaking actions. What you measure, you improve. If you measure only study, you improve study. If you measure response, you improve response. The 18th rule is that your brain needs proof in different situations. Some learners practice alone and become confident alone, but then freeze with people. This is normal because the brain connects confidence to context. If all your practice happens alone in your room, your brain may not automatically feel safe in a real conversation. So gradually expand your practice contexts. First, speak alone, then record your voice, then speak while looking in the mirror, then practice with one trusted person, then send a voice message, then speak in a small online group, then try a real conversation. This gradual expansion teaches your brain that English can be used in more than one environment. Do not jump too fast if you are nervous, but do not stay forever in private practice either. Private practice builds the foundation. Real interaction builds confidence. You need both. The 19th rule is that speed and confidence grow when you stop comparing your English to someone else's final result. Comparison is poison for learners because you compare your practice stage to someone else's polished stage. You hear someone speaking smoothly, and you forget that they also had a beginning, they also made mistakes, they also repeated patterns, they also struggled with speed, and they also built confidence through time. When you compare yourself harshly, your brain becomes ashamed. Shame slows speaking. Shame increases translation. Shame makes mistakes feel dangerous. Shame tells you to stay silent. Instead of comparing, study fluent speakers as models. Notice their patterns, their openings, their reactions, their pauses, their repair phrases, their simple expressions. Do not say, "They are better than me." Say, "What can I borrow from their speaking system?" This turns comparison into learning. A fluent speaker is not proof that you are weak. A fluent speaker is proof that the skill can be built. The 20th rule is that you must create a new relationship with speed. Speed is not pressure, speed is trust. When your brain trusts a pattern, it uses it faster. When your mouth trusts a phrase, it says it smoother. When your confidence trusts your ability to recover, it allows you to begin. So if you want speed, build trust. Trust comes from repetition. Trust comes from simple answers. Trust comes from recovery practice. Trust comes from emotional safety. Trust comes from successful small conversations. Trust comes from evidence. Every time you practice, you are not only practicing English, you are teaching your nervous system that English is not an emergency. This is a deep point. For many learners, English speaking feels like an emergency. The heart beats faster. The mouth becomes dry. The mind rushes. The body becomes tense. The brain searches for escape. This is not only a language issue, it is a nervous system issue. Your body must learn that speaking English is safe. How does the body learn safety? Through repeated calm exposure. You practice easy answers calmly. You practice patterns calmly. You practice recovery calmly. You practice with gentle pressure calmly. You make mistakes and continue calmly. Over time, the body stops reacting as if English is danger. Then speed becomes natural because the body is no longer fighting the moment. This is why forcing yourself harshly is not always the answer. You do need discipline, but you also need calm repetition. If every practice session feels like punishment, your brain will avoid English. If practice feels challenging but safe, your brain will return to it. The 21st rule is that confidence is connected to identity. If you see yourself as a person who cannot speak English, every speaking moment becomes proof of that identity. Even small mistakes feel huge because they confirm what you already fear. But if you begin to see yourself as a person training my English response system, mistakes feel different because they are part of the training, not proof of failure. Change the identity. Do not say, "I am bad at speaking." Say, "I am training my response speed." Do not say, I always freeze. Say, I am learning to begin faster. Do not say, I cannot speak without mistakes. Say, I can communicate and improve. Do not say, my English is not enough. Say, I can use the English I have. These identity statements matter because they guide your behavior. A hopeless identity creates avoidance. A training identity creates action. And action creates confidence. The 20-second rule is that you need a personal speed-building routine. Here is a strong routine. First, choose 5 common questions. Second, answer each question with 1 simple sentence. Third, answer each question again with 3 sentences. Fourth, answer each question with a 3-second start. Fifth, record 1 answer and listen without judging harshly. Sixth, repeat 1 answer until it sounds smoother. Seventh, finish by saying 1 confidence line. I can answer in English simply and clearly. This routine may take only a few minutes, but if you do it daily, it trains every important part of the speed-confidence connection: quick beginning, structured answer, voice practice, self-awareness, repetition, and identity. Let us take one example. Question: why do you want to improve your English? 1 simple sentence: I want to improve my English because I want more confidence. 3-sentence answer: I want to improve my English because I want more confidence. The main reason is that I understand English, but I sometimes freeze when I speak. If I practice daily, I believe my answers will become faster and more natural. 3-second start: because I want more confidence. Then continue. Recorded version: say it clearly and listen. Smooth version: repeat until your mouth feels comfortable. Confidence line: I can answer in English simply and clearly. This is not complicated, but it is complete. The 23rd rule is that speed must serve meaning. Never sacrifice meaning just to speak faster. If fast speech makes your message unclear, slow down. If fast speech makes your pronunciation disappear, slow down. If fast speech makes your mind panic, slow down and rebuild. The goal is not speed for display. The goal is speed for communication. A good speaker knows when to speak quickly and when to slow down. Important ideas often need slower speech. Emotional ideas often need space. Explanations often need clear rhythm. Casual answers can be quicker. Confidence is not one speed all the time. Confidence is control. So build response speed, but keep control. Start faster. Speak clearly. Pause calmly. Continue naturally. Repair mistakes smoothly. That is real fluency. The 24th rule is that you must learn to enjoy the feeling of progress. Many learners are so focused on what they still cannot do that they ignore what is improving. They answered faster today, but they say, my grammar was not perfect. They spoke for 1 minute, but they say, my accent was not good. They repaired a mistake, but they say, I made a mistake. This mindset steals confidence. You must notice progress. Did you begin faster than before? That is progress. Did you use a pattern? That is progress. Did you continue after a mistake? That is progress. Did you speak out loud today? That is progress. Did you answer without translating 1 sentence? That is progress. Confidence grows when progress is noticed. If you never notice progress, your brain feels that effort is not working and motivation becomes weak. But if you notice small improvements, your brain becomes encouraged, and encouraged brains practice more. The 25th rule is that speed and confidence become strongest when they are connected to purpose. Why do you want to answer faster? Not just to sound fluent. Not just to impress people. Not just to prove something. You want to answer faster because you want your real thoughts to reach the world. You want to stop losing opportunities because of silence. You want to stop feeling smaller than you are. You want to stop letting translation hide your intelligence. You want to express your personality in English. You want to connect with people. You want to speak before fear edits your voice. When your purpose is strong, practice becomes meaningful. You are not just repeating sentences. You are building access to your own voice. This is why the English response system is not only a language method, it is a confidence method. Because every faster response teaches you that your voice can move, your thoughts can be heard, and your English can become a bridge instead of a wall. By now, you should understand that confidence is not waiting somewhere far away. It is being built every time you respond. It is being built when you start with I think, when you choose a simple answer, when you continue after a mistake, when you ask someone to repeat, when you record your voice, when you practice under gentle pressure, when you stop comparing, and when you prove to your brain that English speaking is safe. The old learner waits for confidence before speaking. The new learner speaks simply to build confidence. The old learner waits until the answer is perfect. The new learner begins with a working answer. The old learner fears speed because speed feels like pressure. The new learner trains response speed because speed creates freedom. The old learner sees mistakes as danger. The new learner sees mistakes as repairable moments. The old learner stays silent because the mind is slow. The new learner builds patterns so the mind can begin. This is the transformation, and this transformation does not require you to become someone else. It requires you to train the system inside you that has been missing for too long. From today, stop asking, how can I become confident first, and start asking, what small response can I practice today to give my brain proof? That question will move you forward because it connects confidence to action. Practice one fast beginning. Practice one simple answer. Practice one recovery phrase. Practice one question back. Practice one controlled pause. Practice one clear voice. Do this again and again, and your speed will begin to change. When speed changes, confidence changes. When confidence changes, your relationship with English changes. And when your relationship with English changes, speaking no longer feels like a painful test. It begins to feel like a skill you are finally learning how to control. There will be a moment in your journey when someone asks you a question in English and you notice something different. You do not freeze as long as before. You do not translate as much as before. You do not panic as deeply as before. And even if your answer is simple, it comes out. That moment may look small to others, but for you it will be powerful because it will prove that the old silence is not permanent. That proof is the beginning of a new English identity. You are not just a learner who understands. You are becoming a speaker who responds. And once your brain believes that you can respond, the next stage becomes possible. Learning how fluent speakers answer without searching desperately for words because their minds do not depend on luck, pressure, or perfect memory. Their minds use patterns, shortcuts, emotional calm, and trained response pathways that make English feel available exactly when they need it. Chapter 6: How Fluent Speakers Answer Without Searching for Words. One of the most mysterious things for an English learner is watching someone answer in English so naturally that it almost looks effortless. They hear a question, they understand it, they respond, they add details, they laugh, they repair mistakes, they continue the conversation, and everything seems to happen without the painful searching, translating, stopping, restarting, and mental pressure that many learners feel every time they try to speak. From the outside, it looks like fluent speakers have some special gift, some secret talent, or some perfect memory that gives them the right words at the right time. But the truth is much more practical and much more hopeful. Fluent speakers do not answer smoothly because they search harder than you. They answer smoothly because they search less. This is the hidden difference. A struggling learner searches for words before every sentence. A fluent speaker uses language that is already connected to meaning, situation, emotion, and response. A struggling learner tries to build English under pressure. A fluent speaker activates English that has already been trained many times. A struggling learner thinks, what is the perfect word? A fluent speaker thinks, what is the clear meaning? A struggling learner waits until the whole sentence feels safe. A fluent speaker begins with a familiar path and builds the answer while speaking. This is why fluent speaking feels fast. It is not because the fluent speaker is thinking about grammar faster than you, and it is not because the fluent speaker knows every possible word in English. It is because their brain has learned to reduce the number of decisions needed before speaking. Every time you answer a question, your brain must make decisions. What does the question mean? What kind of answer is needed? Should I give an opinion, a reason, an example, a story, or a short reaction? What sentence should I begin with? What words should I choose? How much detail should I add? How should I finish? If your brain has no trained system, all of these decisions happen at once and the mind becomes overloaded. But if your brain has response patterns, ready-made thoughts, chunks, emotional reactions, and repair phrases, many decisions become automatic and your attention becomes free to focus on meaning. This is the first secret of fluent speakers. They do not choose everything from zero. They reuse familiar structures. They reuse common phrases. They reuse sentence shapes. They reuse stories. They reuse examples. They reuse emotional reactions. They reuse thinking bridges. This is not fake. This is how real language works. Even in your native language, you are not inventing every sentence from nothing. You use familiar patterns every day without noticing them. You have common ways to greet people, explain problems, give advice, complain, joke, show surprise, express respect, disagree, ask for help, and tell stories. Because those patterns are automatic in your native language, you feel free, natural, and fast. English can become the same way, but only if you stop treating every English sentence like a new mountain and start building the repeated paths fluent speakers use. The second secret is that fluent speakers search for ideas before they search for words. This difference is extremely important. A learner often hears a question and immediately starts searching for English words, but a fluent speaker first understands the idea, then expresses it with available language. If the exact word is not available, they choose another word, explain around it, simplify it, or change the sentence. Their goal is not to protect the exact wording, their goal is to protect the meaning. For example, suppose someone wants to say, "I was overwhelmed," but the word overwhelmed does not come to mind. A learner may freeze because they think the answer cannot continue without that exact word. A fluent communicator can say, "I felt like it was too much for me," or "I had too many things in my mind," or "I felt a lot of pressure." The meaning survives even if the exact word is missing. This skill is one of the greatest fluency skills in the world, the ability to say the same idea in a different way. If you do not know the word responsibility, say "the things I have to do." If you do not know opportunity, say "a good chance." If you do not know confident, say "I feel sure about myself." If you do not know embarrassed, say "I felt bad because people saw my mistake." If you do not know improve, say "get better." If you do not know hesitate, say "I stop because I am not sure." This is not weak English. This is flexible English. A learner who demands exact words becomes silent when one word disappears. A speaker who protects meaning can continue even with simple language. This is why fluent speakers do not look trapped when they forget a word. They move around it because their goal is communication, not perfection. The third secret is that fluent speakers use simple words more than learners imagine. Many learners believe fluency means using difficult vocabulary, advanced expressions, long sentences, and impressive grammar, but real fluent speech often depends on simple words used quickly, naturally, and flexibly. The most useful words in conversation are often not the rarest words, but the most available words. Words like think, feel, mean, say, know, want, need, try, make, take, get, give, work, happen, help, change, start, stop, become, use, learn, understand, believe, explain, remember, forget, and continue can carry thousands of real conversations. A strong speaker can do a lot with simple words. They can say, "I think the problem is not English itself, but the way we practice it." They can say, "I feel nervous when I speak, but I still try to continue." They can say, "What I mean is, I understand the idea, but I need more time to answer." They can say, "It happens because the brain is translating too much." They can say, "The best way to improve is to use English every day in small responses." These sentences are not built with rare vocabulary, but they are clear, useful, and fluent because the speaker uses simple words with strong structure. Many learners chase advanced words because they want to sound intelligent, but intelligence in conversation is not only shown by vocabulary, it is shown by clarity, timing, confidence, and the ability to express meaning without making the listener work too hard. If your English is simple but clear, people understand you. If your English is advanced but confused, people struggle. If your English is perfect in your head but silent in your mouth, nobody hears it. So fluent speakers do not worship difficult words, they use the words that work. This is why you must build a strong base of high-frequency English, because high-frequency English becomes the engine of conversation. Advanced words are useful, but simple active words are the foundation. If your foundation is weak, advanced words will not save your speaking. The fourth secret is that fluent speakers do not wait for perfect grammar before speaking. This does not mean grammar is useless. Grammar is important because it helps your meaning become clear, but fluent speakers do not stop every sentence at the gate of grammar inspection before letting it out. They have internalized many grammar patterns through use, and when they make small mistakes, they repair them naturally or continue if the meaning is clear. Many learners treat grammar like a policeman standing at the door of the mouth, checking every word before it is allowed to leave. This creates fear, delay, and silence. Fluent speakers treat grammar more like a road system. It guides movement, but it does not stop the entire journey every time the road is not perfect. In real conversation, grammar should support communication, not destroy it. A sentence with small grammar mistakes but clear meaning can continue a conversation. A perfect sentence that arrives too late may lose the moment. This does not mean you should ignore grammar forever. It means you should separate speaking practice from grammar correction time. When you are speaking, communicate first. After speaking, reflect and improve. During conversation, use the best grammar available to you. After conversation, learn from what was difficult. This is how fluent speakers grow. They do not avoid speaking until every rule is perfect. They speak, notice, adjust, and speak again. The fifth secret is that fluent speakers use fillers and thinking phrases wisely. Many learners think fluent speech means no pauses, no fillers, and no hesitation, but natural speakers use small thinking phrases all the time. The difference is that they use them calmly and naturally, not with panic. Phrases like, well, honestly, let me think, that's a good question. I would say, you know, the thing is, it depends, and I guess help speakers manage time while staying inside the conversation. These phrases are like small bridges between thought and speech. If someone asks a difficult question, a fluent speaker may not answer instantly with a perfect sentence. They may say, that's a good question. I think it depends on the situation. This gives the brain a moment to organize the answer, but the conversation does not feel broken. A learner without these phrases may stay completely silent, and silence creates pressure. A learner with thinking phrases can stay active while thinking. This is a major difference. You must learn to think in English out loud. Not every thought needs to be hidden. Sometimes you can say, let me think for a second. Sometimes you can say, I'm not sure, but I would say. Sometimes you can say, the way I see it. Sometimes you can say, it depends on what you mean. These phrases do not make you weak. They make your speaking natural because real speakers need time too. The sixth secret is that fluent speakers recognize question types quickly. They do not treat every question as a new unknown problem. Their brain listens for the function of the question. Is the person asking for an opinion, a reason, a story, a preference, a solution, a feeling, a clarification? Once the function is clear, the speaker chooses the answer shape. If the question is, what do you think about online learning? The function is opinion, so the answer begins with an opinion pattern. If the question is, why is speaking difficult for learners? The function is reason, so the answer begins with a reason pattern. If the question is, have you ever felt nervous speaking English? The function is experience, so the answer begins with a story pattern. If the question is, which method do you prefer? The function is preference, so the answer begins with a comparison pattern. This recognition reduces searching because the brain does not start from the entire language, it starts from the category. Opinion questions need opinion language. Reason questions need reason language. Experience questions need story language. Preference questions need comparison language. Problem questions need solution language. Emotional questions need feeling language. Once you train this, English becomes less overwhelming. A question is no longer a storm of words, it becomes a signal telling your brain what kind of response to activate. The seventh secret is that fluent speakers use default answers for common topics. This does not mean they repeat robotic scripts, but they have familiar ideas ready for common questions. Ask a fluent speaker about their work, their goals, their hobbies, their opinion, their daily routine, their challenges, or their experiences, and they usually have some ready language because these topics appear often. Learners often fail to prepare for the questions they are most likely to hear. They know grammar rules, but they cannot answer, "Tell me about yourself." They know vocabulary lists, but they cannot explain, "Why are you learning English?" They watch English videos, but they cannot describe what is difficult for you. They study tenses, but they cannot talk about yesterday, today, and tomorrow in a simple, natural way. This is why common topic preparation is so powerful. You should have ready answers for your personal world. Who are you? What do you do? Why are you learning English? What is your biggest speaking challenge? What helps you improve? What are your goals? What do you like? What do you believe about learning? What is one mistake you made? made? What is one lesson you learned? If you can answer these common questions well, your confidence in conversation will increase because many real conversations begin from these areas. The eighth secret is that fluent speakers do not depend on long answers. They know how to give short answers, medium answers, and long answers depending on the moment. This is very important because many learners think every answer must be long to prove fluency, but natural conversation uses different answer lengths. If someone casually asks, "How was your day?" a short answer may be perfect. "It was good, just a little busy." If the person shows interest and asks, "What made it busy?" then you can add more, "I had a lot of work and I also spent some time practicing English." If the conversation becomes deeper, you can say more. "Actually, I'm trying to build a daily habit because I realized that short practice every day helps me more than studying randomly." Fluent speakers adjust length. They do not give a speech when a simple answer is enough. They do not give one word when the moment needs detail. This flexibility makes them sound natural. Learners often struggle because they have only two modes: silence or over-explanation. They either say too little because they are afraid, or they try to say everything because they want to prove they can speak. A fluent response system gives you control over length. You can answer in one sentence. You can answer in 3 sentences. You can answer in a story. You can answer with an example. You can answer and ask back. This control reduces pressure because you know you do not need to give the perfect amount every time. You can start small and expand if needed. The ninth secret is that fluent speakers use conversation loops. A conversation loop is a simple pattern: answer, add detail, ask back. This loop keeps the conversation moving and prevents pressure from staying only on you. For example, someone asks, "Do you enjoy learning English?" Answer, "Yes, I do." Add detail, "I enjoy it because I can feel my confidence improving, but speaking is still challenging for me." Ask back, "What about you? Do you enjoy learning languages?" This is a natural loop. Many learners only answer and stop, then the other person must ask another question, and the learner feels like they are being interviewed. But when you ask back, the conversation becomes shared, and shared conversation feels easier. Another loop is reaction, question, follow-up. Someone says, "I started learning English last year." Reaction: "That's great." Question: "What made you start?" Follow up after their answer: "That makes sense. I think motivation is very important in the beginning." This loop allows you to participate without giving long speeches. Fluent speakers use loops naturally because conversation is not about giving perfect answers, it is about keeping connection alive. The 10th secret is that fluent speakers are comfortable with incomplete knowledge. They do not need to know every word before they communicate. They accept that sometimes they will forget a word, misunderstand something, or need clarification, and they have tools for those moments. This mindset is very different from many learners. A learner thinks, "If I do not know the word, I cannot speak." A fluent communicator thinks, "If I do not know the word, I can explain it another way." A learner thinks, "If I do not understand, I failed." A fluent communicator thinks, "If I do not understand, I can ask." A learner thinks, "If I make a mistake, I will look bad." A fluent communicator thinks, "If I make a mistake, I can repair it." This emotional flexibility is a huge part of fluency. Fluency is not the absence of problems. Fluency is the ability to keep communicating when problems appear. If you want to answer without desperately searching, you must stop demanding perfect knowledge before speaking. Instead, build tools for imperfect moments. Say, "I don't know the exact word, but..." Say, "How can I say this?" Say, "It is something like." Say, "I mean." Say, "Let me explain it another way." These phrases turn missing knowledge into manageable communication. The 11th secret is that fluent speakers use their listener as support. Many learners feel they must carry the whole conversation alone, but real conversation is shared. The listener can help if you use interaction wisely. If you are not sure what the person means, ask. If you need a moment, say so. If you want to check understanding, ask, "Do you know what I mean?" If you want to confirm, ask, "Is that clear?" If you need a word, say, "What is the word for that?" This is not weakness. This is communication. In real life, people help each other communicate all the time. Even native speakers forget words, ask for clarification, repeat ideas, and check understanding. The difference is that they do not treat these moments as shameful. Learners often believe they must perform alone, like an exam candidate, but conversation is not a solo performance, it is a shared activity. When you understand this, the pressure becomes lighter, and when pressure becomes lighter, the mind can respond faster. The 12th secret is that fluent speakers build answers from meaning, not from grammar rules. Grammar is inside the answer, but meaning leads the answer. If someone asks, "What changed your English?" a fluent speaker first thinks of the meaning, daily practice, less translation, more confidence. Then they speak. The biggest change was practicing every day and trying to answer without translating. They do not think, "Which tense should I use? Is this past simple or present perfect? Should I use gerund after practice?" The grammar is there because it has been practiced, but the speaker is focused on the message. Learners often reverse this. They think about grammar first and meaning second, and this creates slow speech. You must train yourself to lead with meaning. Ask yourself, what do I want to say simply? Then say it. After speaking, you can improve grammar. But during speaking, meaning must lead. The 13th secret is that fluent speakers make their first sentence easy. The first sentence is often the hardest part, so fluent speakers use easy openings. They do not always begin with the deepest idea. They begin with a clear doorway. Question: what is the best way to improve English? Easy first sentence: I think the best way is daily practice. Then add, the reason is that English becomes natural when your brain meets it every day. Then example. For example, answering 5 questions out loud every morning can train your response speed. This answer grows from easy to strong. A struggling learner tries to start with the strongest possible sentence and freezes. A fluent speaker starts with a simple sentence and builds strength. This is a skill you must copy. Do not try to make your first sentence perfect. Make your first sentence easy. Easy first sentences break silence. Once silence is broken, your brain can continue. The 14th secret is that fluent speakers do not translate their personality word for word. They express their personality through the English they have. This is important because many learners feel frustrated that they cannot sound as funny, deep, intelligent, emotional, or confident in English as they do in their native language. They try to carry their full native language personality into English immediately, and the pressure becomes too heavy. Fluent growth means building your English personality step by step. At first, you may express your personality simply. You may say, "I like helping people." Later, "I enjoy helping people because it makes me feel useful." Later, "One thing that gives me real satisfaction is helping someone understand something that once felt difficult." The same personality becomes more detailed over time. Do not reject your English voice because it is not as advanced as your native voice yet. Your English voice is younger. Let it grow. Fluent speakers answer without searching because their English personality has developed through use. They know how they usually express humor, seriousness, disagreement, kindness, curiosity, and confidence in English. You must develop this too, not by waiting, but by speaking. The 15th secret is that fluent speakers practice common transitions. Transitions are words and phrases that connect ideas, and they are extremely important for speaking because they help the listener follow your thoughts and help your brain know where to go next. Useful transitions include, first of all, another thing is, at the same time, for example, that is why. On the other hand, in my experience, to be honest, the main point is, and so basically, without transitions, your ideas may feel disconnected. With transitions, your speaking becomes smoother. For example, first of all, I think speaking practice is important. Another thing is, learners need to stop translating too much. For example, if someone asks a simple question, they should try to answer with a simple pattern. That is why response training can help. This answer is easy to follow because transitions create a path. Fluent speakers do this naturally. Learners can train it intentionally. The 16th secret is that fluent speakers use repetition without sounding weak. Sometimes learners think repeating an idea is bad, but natural speakers repeat key ideas in different ways to make meaning clear. For example, the main problem is translation. Learners understand English, but they still think in their native language before answering. That delay is what makes speaking slow. This is repetition with clarity. You repeat the main idea, then explain it in another way. This helps both you and the listener. It gives your brain time and makes your message stronger. If you do not know how to continue, repeat the idea with a phrase like, "What I mean is," or in other words, or basically. This is a natural speaking tool. The 17th secret is that fluent speakers know how to reduce big ideas. A big idea can be difficult to speak, so fluent speakers reduce it into smaller pieces. Big idea: the psychological pressure created by social judgment affects language performance. Simple spoken version: when people feel judged, they speak worse. This is powerful. Many learners try to speak in the big version because they want to sound advanced, but the simple version is often more natural and stronger. If the idea is too big, reduce it. If the sentence is too long, divide it. If the word is too difficult, use a simpler word. If the explanation is too heavy, give an example. This is how fluent speakers keep moving. The 18th secret is that fluent speakers use examples as rescue tools. When explanation becomes difficult, examples save you. If you cannot explain an idea directly, say, for example. Question: what do you mean by response system? Answer: it means training your brain to answer automatically. For example, when someone asks, "Why are you learning English?" you do not translate a long answer. You quickly say, "I'm learning English because I want more confidence." The example makes the idea clear. Examples reduce pressure because you stop explaining abstractly and start showing practically. If you are stuck, give an example. If your idea sounds unclear, give an example. If your sentence becomes too complicated, give an example. Fluent speakers do this constantly. The 19th secret is that fluent speakers listen for intention, not only words. When someone speaks, they are not only giving words, they are showing intention. Are they asking for information? Are they showing emotion? Are they inviting your opinion? Are they making a joke? Are they asking for help? Are they disagreeing? Are they curious? If you understand intention, you can respond more naturally. Someone says, "I'm so tired today." The intention may be emotion, not information. A natural response is not a grammar-perfect explanation. It is support. "Yeah, you look tired. Did you sleep well?" Someone says, "I finally finished my project." The intention is good news. A natural response is, "That's great, congratulations." Someone says, "I don't know if I can speak English well." The intention is insecurity. A natural response is, "I understand. It takes time, but you can improve with practice." Fluent speakers respond to intention. Learners often respond only to words. When you respond to intention, your English feels human. The 20th secret is that fluent speakers accept that conversation is unpredictable. They do not need to control everything. They have enough tools to handle the unknown. This is important because many learners want to prepare for every possible question before they speak. But that is impossible. Real conversation will always include surprises. The goal is not to memorize every answer. The goal is to build flexible tools. If the question is new, use a thinking phrase. If the word is missing, explain another way. If the topic is difficult, give a simple opinion. If you do not understand, ask. If you make a mistake, repair. If you need time, pause calmly. These tools make unpredictability less frightening. Fluency is not knowing exactly what will happen. Fluency is trusting that you can respond when something happens. The 21st secret is that fluent speakers build automaticity through repeated situations. They do not become fluent by practicing a sentence once. They repeat situations until the response becomes natural. A person who has introduced themselves 100 times can introduce themselves easily. A person who has explained their job many times can explain it smoothly. A person who has discussed their goals many times can talk about them with confidence. A person who has practiced giving opinions many times can answer opinion questions faster. Repetition creates automaticity. Automaticity reduces searching. This is why you must repeat useful topics, not avoid them because they feel boring. Boring repetition becomes fluent speech. The learner who repeats common answers becomes ready. The learner who constantly chases new content may remain unready for common conversations. The 22nd secret is that fluent speakers use pronunciation confidence, not pronunciation perfection. They try to speak clearly enough to be understood, but they do not stop their entire answer because one sound is not perfect. They know communication can still continue even with an accent. Many learners search for words because they are also afraid of pronunciation. They may know the word, but they hesitate because they fear saying it incorrectly. This fear slows response speed. Your goal should be clear pronunciation, not accent perfection. Say the word as clearly as you can. If a listener does not understand, repeat or explain. This is normal. Do not let pronunciation fear block meaning. The 23rd secret is that fluent speakers do not over-monitor themselves while speaking. Self-monitoring means listening to yourself too much while speaking and judging every word as it comes out. Some monitoring is useful, but too much monitoring breaks fluency. If your mind is speaking and judging at the same time, it becomes divided. One part tries to communicate, another part criticizes. This creates tension. You need a better system. During speaking, focus mostly on meaning. After speaking, reflect on improvement. This does not mean careless speaking, it means choosing the right time for correction. Conversation time is communication time. Review time is correction time. When you separate these, speaking becomes smoother. The 24th secret is that fluent speakers keep their answers connected to the listener. They notice if the listener is interested, confused, bored, surprised, or engaged. This helps them decide whether to add more detail, simplify, ask back, or stop. Learners often speak from fear, so they focus only on themselves. Am I correct? Is my grammar okay? Is my accent bad? Fluent speakers focus more on communication. Does the listener understand? Should I explain more? Should I ask them something? This shift reduces self-pressure. When you focus only on yourself, English becomes performance. When you focus on the listener, English becomes connection. Connection helps fluency because it gives your speech a purpose beyond correctness. The 25th secret is that fluent speakers know how to continue after a short answer. A short answer is not a failure if you know how to extend it. Question: do you like speaking English? Short answer: yes, I do. Extension: but I still feel nervous sometimes. Reason: the reason is that I don't want to make mistakes. Hope: but I'm trying to practice more so I can become natural. Now the answer is complete. The skill is not always giving long answers immediately. The skill is knowing how to extend when needed. Use extensions like especially when, the reason is, for example, but at the same time, that is why, now I'm trying to. These extensions help you continue without searching too much. The 26th secret is that fluent speakers have emotional tolerance. They can feel nervous and still speak. They can feel unsure and still answer. They can feel imperfect and still continue. Many learners believe they must remove nervousness before speaking, but fluent speakers often speak while feeling some nervousness. The difference is that nervousness does not control them. You need to build tolerance for the feeling of speaking imperfectly. At first, it may feel uncomfortable to answer quickly. It may feel uncomfortable to hear your own accent. It may feel uncomfortable to make mistakes. It may feel uncomfortable when someone waits. But discomfort is not danger. Discomfort is training. When you speak through discomfort calmly, your tolerance increases. When tolerance increases, confidence increases. When confidence increases, searching decreases. The 27th secret is that fluent speakers make English personal. They do not only learn sentences, they connect English to their own thoughts, life, problems, hopes, values, and stories. Because of this, their words are easier to access because they are connected to real meaning. If you only memorize random sentences, your brain may not find them when you need them. If you practice sentences connected to your life, they become more available. Talk about your real day. Talk about your real goals. Talk about your real struggles. Talk about your real opinions. Talk about your real progress. Personal English becomes active English. Active English becomes spoken English. The 28th secret is that fluent speakers have a response identity. They see themselves as people who can enter conversation, not people who must hide until they are perfect. This identity changes everything. If you identify only as a learner, you may always wait for more lessons. If you identify as a responder, you begin using what you know. A learner collects English. A responder activates English. A learner waits for readiness. A responder creates readiness through use. A learner fears mistakes. A responder repairs mistakes. A learner asks, "Do I know enough?" A responder asks, "Can I use what I know?" This is the identity you must build. The 29th secret is that fluent speakers practice in a way that matches real speaking. They do not only study rules, they answer questions. They do not only memorize lists, they use words and responses. They do not only listen silently, they repeat, summarize, and react. They do not only read, they explain what they read. They do not only watch videos, they pause and answer. This is why their English becomes available. If your practice does not require response, your real conversation response will remain weak. You must turn input into output. After watching a video, summarize it in English. After reading a paragraph, explain the main an idea. After learning a phrase, use it in 3 personal sentences. After hearing a question, pause and answer out loud. This is how English moves from recognition to production. The 30th secret is that fluent speakers do not fear simple repetition in real conversation. They may repeat a phrase like "I think" many times, and that is normal. They may say "the thing is" or "you know" or "I mean" more than once. Natural speech is not always perfectly varied. Learners sometimes pressure themselves to use a different phrase every time, but this creates unnecessary difficulty. It is okay to repeat useful phrases. As your level grows, your variety will grow. First, become clear, then become flexible, then become more expressive. Do not demand advanced variety before basic fluency. The 31st secret is that fluent speakers understand the difference between speaking practice and performance. Practice is where you build skill. Performance is where you use skill. Many learners treat every speaking moment like performance, so they are afraid to practice imperfectly. But fluent speakers know that practice must include mistakes, repetition, awkwardness, and correction. If you want to become fluent, you need private practice where you are allowed to sound bad. You need practice where you repeat the same answer 5 times. You need practice where you record and improve. You need practice where you make mistakes and repair. You need practice where your goal is not to impress, but to train. Performance improves when practice is honest. If you only practice to sound good, you will avoid the difficult parts. If you practice to improve, you will face the difficult parts and grow. The 32nd secret is that fluent speakers know the power of prepared spontaneity. This may sound strange, but it is one of the deepest truths of speaking. The most natural speakers are not completely unprepared. They have prepared so many patterns, stories, phrases, and responses that they can sound spontaneous. Preparation creates spontaneity. A speaker who has practiced many opinion patterns can give an opinion naturally. A speaker who has told their story many times can tell it smoothly. A speaker who has practiced examples can explain ideas easily. A speaker who has repeated recovery phrases can repair mistakes calmly. From the outside, it looks spontaneous. Inside, it is trained. This should encourage you because it means natural speaking can be built. You do not need to wait for magic. You can prepare the building blocks of natural speech. The 33rd secret is that fluent speakers allow their answers to be imperfect but complete. This is important because many learners abandon sentences halfway if they are not perfect. Fluent speakers may have small imperfections, but they complete the communication. Completion matters. If you start an answer, finish the meaning. If you make a mistake, repair and finish. If you lose a word, explain and finish. If your sentence is simple, still finish. Every completed answer teaches your brain that you can survive the full movement of speaking. An incomplete answer leaves the brain with fear. A completed answer gives the brain evidence. Finish your answers. Even short answers, even imperfect answers. Completion builds confidence. The 34th secret is that fluent speakers use listening feedback to shape answers. If the listener looks confused, they simplify. If the listener looks interested, they add detail. If the listener agrees, they continue. If the listener interrupts, they adjust. This makes speech dynamic. Learners often prepare one fixed answer and panic if the conversation changes. Fluent speakers adapt because they are not attached to one perfect sentence. They are attached to meaning. Adaptation is fluency. If your first explanation does not work, say it another way. If your answer is too long, shorten it. If the listener asks a follow-up question, use it as direction. If you do not know the answer, say so honestly and add what you can. The 35th secret is that fluent speakers treat vocabulary as tools, not trophies. A trophy word is a word you know and feel proud of but cannot use easily. A tool word is a word you can use in real communication. Many learners collect trophy words. Fluent speakers depend on tool words. The word improve is a tool if you can say, "I want to improve," "My speaking is improving," "This method helps me improve," "I improved because I practice daily," "I need to improve my response speed." The word becomes yours when you can use it in different sentences. Do not only ask, "Do I know this word?" Ask, "Can I use this word in 5 real sentences?" Usage turns vocabulary into fluency. The 36th secret is that fluent speakers are not afraid to be clear. Some learners think clear English is too simple, so they try to sound complicated, but fluent speakers value clarity. They know that communication becomes powerful when the listener understands quickly. Clear does not mean childish. Clear means strong. A clear sentence can change a conversation. A clear explanation can teach someone. A clear answer can create confidence. A clear opinion can show intelligence. If you want to answer without searching, aim for clarity first. Ask, what is the clearest way to say this? Not the most advanced way. Not the longest way. Not the most impressive way. The clearest way. Clarity reduces searching because it gives your mind permission to choose simpler language. The 37th secret is that fluent speakers have practiced default explanation paths. When they need to explain something, they often follow paths like main idea, reason, example, result. This path can explain almost anything. Topic: daily English practice. Main idea: daily practice is important. Reason: the reason is that the brain needs repetition. Example: for example, answering 5 questions every day trains response speed. Result: over time, speaking becomes more natural. This path is extremely useful. Another path is problem, cause, solution, action. Problem: many learners freeze. Cause: it happens because they translate before speaking. Solution: they need response patterns. Action: they should practice answering simple questions out loud. These paths remove searching because they tell your brain what comes next. The 38th secret is that fluent speakers know when not to speak too much. Fluency is not only the ability to talk longer, it is also the ability to stop naturally. Some learners believe they must keep talking to prove fluency, but too much talking without structure can become confusing. A fluent speaker can say enough and stop. They can finish with, "That is how I see it." They can finish with, "That is the main point." They can finish with, "So yes, that is why I think it matters." This gives the listener space. Conversation is not filling every second. Conversation is sharing meaning. The 39th secret is that fluent speakers turn repeated mistakes into practice targets. They do not only feel bad about mistakes, they use them as information. If they often forget past tense, they practice past stories. If they often freeze at opinions, they practice opinion patterns. If they often cannot explain reasons, they practice because the reason is and it happens because. If they often sound unclear, they practice pronunciation chunks. If they often cannot continue, they practice continuation phrases. This is smart learning. Mistakes show you where the system needs training. Do not hate your mistakes. Study them, use them, train them. The 40th secret is that fluent speakers create comfort with their own English voice. Many learners feel strange hearing themselves speak English. They feel fake, uncomfortable, or embarrassed, and this discomfort makes them avoid speaking. Fluent speakers become comfortable with their English voice because they hear it often. You need to hear yourself speaking English. Record your answers. Read out loud. Repeat patterns. Speak to yourself. At first, your voice may feel strange. Later, it becomes normal. When your English voice becomes normal to you, speaking to others becomes easier. This is a hidden but powerful step. The 41st secret is that fluent speakers understand that fluency is built in layers. Layer 1 is understanding. Layer 2 is simple response. Layer 3 is structured response. Layer 4 is flexible response. Layer 5 is natural response. Many learners want to jump from understanding directly to natural response, and when they cannot, they feel like failures. But the missing layers must be built. First, understand, then answer simply, then add structure, then build flexibility, then naturalness grows. Do not skip the middle. The English response system is designed to build these layers. Chapter 1 showed the freeze. Chapter 2 broke translation. Chapter 3 built response patterns. Chapter 4 trained ready-made English thinking. Chapter 5 connected speed and confidence. And now Chapter 6 reveals how fluent speakers answer without desperate searching. They use flexible meaning, simple active words, patterns, recovery tools, examples, transitions, emotional tolerance, and repeated situations. This is not magic. This is method. And if it is method, you can learn it. The 42nd secret is that fluent speakers keep going long enough for English to become familiar. Many learners quit too early because they think struggle means they are not improving, but struggle often means the brain is building new pathways. The first days of response practice may feel slow, but if you continue, the same questions become easier, the same patterns become faster, and the same situations become less scary. Familiarity is powerful. A familiar question is easier. A familiar pattern is faster. A familiar phrase is smoother. A familiar situation is less frightening. Your goal is to make English conversation familiar through repeated exposure, not once, not twice, many times. This is how searching decreases. The 43rd secret is that fluent speakers give themselves permission to start before they know the end. This is one of the biggest differences between fluent speakers and frozen learners. Frozen learners want to know the whole sentence before beginning. Fluent speakers often begin with a clear opening and trust that the next part will come. They say, "I think the main problem is," and then the reason appears. They say, "For me, the hardest part was," and then the experience appears. They say, "The way I see it," and then the opinion appears. They say, "Let me explain it simply," and then the explanation appears. Starting creates momentum. Momentum brings the next words. If you wait for all the words before starting, momentum never begins. Train yourself to begin with a safe opening. The answer does not need to be fully ready. It needs a doorway. The 44th secret is that fluent speakers do not confuse fluency with speed alone. They know fluency includes clarity, rhythm, connection, flexibility, confidence, and the ability to continue. Speaking fast with confusion is not fluency. Speaking clearly with natural movement is fluency. So do not chase speed without control. Chase availability. Can your English become available when needed? Can you start? Can you continue? Can you explain? Can you repair? Can you ask back? Can you finish? This is real fluency. The 45th secret is that fluent speakers build trust with their own minds. They trust that if one word does not come, another word can work. They trust that if one sentence breaks, they can repair it. They trust that if the question is difficult, they can begin simply. They trust that if they need time, they can ask for it. They trust that communication does not require perfection. This trust is not created by wishful thinking. It is created by repeated practice. Every time you answer, trust grows. Every time you recover, trust grows. Every time you simplify, trust grows. Every time you continue, trust grows. Trust reduces searching because the brain no longer treats every missing word as a disaster. The 46th secret is that fluent speakers stay connected to the purpose of the conversation. If the purpose is to share information, they share it clearly. If the purpose is to comfort someone, they respond warmly. If the purpose is to solve a problem, they explain practically. If the purpose is to build friendship, they ask and react. If the purpose is to learn, they ask for clarification. Learners often forget the purpose because they are trapped inside language anxiety. They think only about English, not about the person. But conversation becomes easier when you remember why you are speaking. You are not speaking to display grammar. You are speaking to share meaning. You are speaking to connect. You are speaking to understand and be understood. Purpose gives direction. Direction reduces panic. The 47th secret is that fluent speakers develop a library of lived examples. They can explain ideas because they have examples ready from life. If they talk about learning, they can share what helped. If they talk about fear, they can share a moment of nervousness. If they talk about confidence, they can share a small improvement. If they talk about mistakes, they can share what they learned. Examples make speaking easier because they turn abstract ideas into stories. Build your own example library. A time you froze. A time you answered well. A method that helped you. A mistake that taught you something. A goal that motivates you. A fear you are overcoming. A small success you remember. These examples can appear in many conversations. They make your English personal and ready. The 48th secret is that fluent speakers turn questions into opportunities, not threats. A frozen learner hears a question and feels, "Now I will be judged." A fluent learner hears a question and feels, "Now I can share meaning." This mindset difference changes the body. If a question is a threat, the body becomes tense. If a question is an opportunity, the body becomes more open. You may not feel this immediately, but you can train it. When you hear a question, say inside your mind, "This is not a test. This is a chance to respond." Then begin simply. This inner instruction can reduce fear over time. The 49th secret is that fluent speakers know their strongest speaking patterns and use them often. Not every pattern will feel natural to you at first. Some phrases may fit your personality better than others. Maybe you like "I think," maybe you like "for me," maybe you like "the main reason is," maybe you like "the way I see it," Choose the patterns that feel comfortable and build from them. Your response system should fit your voice. Do not force yourself to sound like someone else. Use patterns that help you express yourself clearly, then slowly add new ones. The 50th secret is that fluent speakers become fluent because they stay in the conversation. This is the final and most important secret of this chapter. They do not win because they never struggle. They win because they stay. They stay when they forget a word. They stay when they make a mistake. They stay when they need to ask again. They stay when the sentence is simple. They stay when the answer is imperfect. They stay when they feel nervous. They stay until English becomes familiar. Most learners leave the conversation mentally before they ever leave physically. Fear pulls them out, translation pulls them out, shame pulls them out, perfection pulls them out, and silence becomes their escape. But fluent speakers remain inside the conversation. They may pause, repair, simplify, or ask for help, but they stay. This is what you must learn. Stay with the meaning. Stay with the listener. Stay with your voice. Stay with the response. Stay even when English is imperfect, because every time you stay, your response system grows stronger. Now you can see clearly that fluent speakers are not performing miracles. They are using trained tools that reduce the need to search desperately for words. They focus on meaning, use simple active language, begin with familiar patterns, repair mistakes, give examples, ask back, listen for intention, and continue through imperfection. This is why they look natural. Naturalness is trained familiarity. The words are familiar, the patterns are familiar, the situations are familiar, the recovery tools are familiar, the emotional pressure is familiar, and what becomes familiar becomes easier to use. Your goal is to make English response familiar, not perfect first. Familiar first. Use simple words until they become fast. Use patterns until they become automatic. Use examples until explanation becomes easier. Use recovery phrases until mistakes lose power. Use question back patterns until conversation feels shared. Use your English voice until it no longer feels strange. This is how you stop searching for every word. You create a mind where English is already connected, already prepared, already practiced, and already willing to move. There will still be moments when you forget words. There will still be moments when you pause. There will still be moments when you make mistakes, but those moments will no longer control you because you will have something stronger than perfect memory. You will have a response system, and when you have a response system, you do not need to wait for every word to appear before you begin. You can begin with meaning, continue with patterns, repair with confidence, and finish with clarity. This is the heart of fluent speaking. Not knowing everything, not saying everything perfectly, not speaking faster than everyone, but answering with enough calm, clarity, and flexibility to keep the conversation alive. Once you understand how fluent speakers answer without desperately searching for words, the next step becomes even more important: installing your own automatic English response system, so these ideas do not remain as inspiration, but become daily practice, real habits, and a new speaking identity that follows you into every conversation. Chapter 7: Installing your automatic English response system. Now you have reached the most important part of this audiobook, because understanding the problem is not enough, knowing the method is not enough, and feeling motivated for a few minutes is not enough. The real change begins when you install this system into your daily life until answering in English becomes a trained habit, not a lucky moment. Your automatic English response system is built through one simple rule: hear a question, understand the meaning, choose a response pattern, answer simply, then add more if needed. Do not wait for perfect English. Do not wait for complete confidence. Do not wait until every word is ready. Start with a simple answer and let your English grow while you speak. Every day, choose 5 common questions and answer them out loud. Use patterns like I think, because, for me, the main reason is, what I mean is, and that is why. These patterns are small, but when you repeat them daily, they become mental roads, and when your brain has roads, English starts moving faster. The goal is not to memorize one perfect answer. The goal is to train your brain to respond. At first, your answers may be simple. That is good. Simple English is the beginning of automatic English. Later, your answers will become longer, smoother, and more natural because your brain will stop fighting the first sentence. Remember this, fluency is not built by understanding English only. Fluency is built by responding again and again until response becomes normal. So from today, stop being only a learner who collects English. Become a speaker who activates English. Answer one question every morning. Describe one moment from your day. Explain one opinion out loud. Repair one mistake without shame. Ask one question back. These small actions will slowly build the system your mind has been missing. Your English is ready to move. If you have stayed with this audiobook until the end, understand this clearly. Your English journey does not need more fear, more delay, or more silent waiting. You already know more English than you think. The problem was never that you had nothing inside you. The problem was that your English had no response system. Now you know the truth. Your brain freezes because it was trained to understand more than respond. Translation slows you because it forces every answer to travel through another language. Response patterns help you begin. Ready-made English thinking helps you prepare. Speed builds confidence. Fluent speakers answer smoothly because they use meaning, patterns, and flexibility instead of searching for perfect words. And now your job is simple. Practice until response becomes your new identity. Do not say, "I cannot speak English." Say, "I am training my English response system." Do not say, "I always freeze." Say, "I am learning to answer faster." Do not say, "My English is not perfect." Say, "My English is moving," because moving English becomes stronger English, and stronger English becomes natural English. Before you leave, subscribe to the channel and write in the comments, "I will answer in English naturally." Let this be your commitment. From today, stop waiting for perfect English. Start responding with the English you already have. This book was published by English Mindset Academy, and this was the English Response System: How to Answer Instantly Without Translating.